Well, 1 month ago today, Diesel and I made our college football playoff predictions. We made our predictions 1 month ago today on what we believed will happen, who will be the national champion, who will be in the CFP, and who will be left out. We did that 1 month ago today. And now we have the conversation to begin the show with you, Tolos, as well, very involved in this very first segment. Now that we know what we know, now that we actually have sample size, real football has been played, how do we evaluate our thoughts today compared to what we made prediction-wise 1 month ago? Welcome into Wire to Wire. He's Diesel. I'm Cole Bryson on this Tolo Tuesday edition of the show. 844-326-3663 is the phone line to call the show. The Hub City Spartanburgers text line is open, and you can watch the show and chime in there on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. Diesel, we actually have football, which, by the way, newsflash, helps when you make analysis and predictions. It's really difficult to do so when you don't have any football. What's the old saying? Sometimes you just don't know what you don't know, and that's where we truly were a month ago. How differently do you feel, Diesel, about the college football landscape and the top teams in the country today compared to 1 month ago?
So you're telling me that everything leading up to the college football season is just guessing? Just stabs in the dark? I don't know. I think they're going to be good. I mean, obviously, look, you and I both thought Clemson was going to go 11-1 and have at least a puncher's chance, a really good chance to make a deep run in the college football playoff and get to the national championship game. And look at them. They're all the way down to, where are they? In the S&P plus numbers, 31. They're the 31st best team in the country. And if you had just gone by Phil Steele's position group by position group, sort of composite rankings in your mind, you'd say, oh, this is a top 5 team. And all of a sudden, bam, after 2 weeks, they're not even in the top 30. I specifically remember picking Ohio State as your back-to-back repeat national champions, and they're sitting right there in the S&P as the second best team in the country. Now that's adjusted based on who you've played, how you performed against who you played. If you're supposed to blow a team out by 70 points and you do, great. You get sort of ramped up in those numbers. But if you're supposed to beat them by 70 but you struggle, then obviously you're going to fall down.
So you do or don't?
Do you still have Ohio State?
No, the question was, do you feel differently about your preseason predictions?
No,
okay.
I still think Ohio State's a really, really good football team, and their numbers are showing it, bearing it out so far.
I think Ohio State's probably in as good a shape as anybody right now. And Tolos, want to hear from you as well. Again, 844-326-3663. JB already chiming in on the YouTube stream. Want to hear from you, Tolos, when it comes to very simple question that we're asking. Now that we've had a month or so since we made our predictions, I know 3 actual weeks of college football, 2 for most. Are your thoughts different on the top teams now, Tolos, than they were a month ago? And that's a good place to start, right there with Ohio State, who's ranked at the very top of the college football AP top 25. For those of you that didn't see the new top 25 that came out yesterday, the top 5 is Ohio State 1, Penn State 2, LSU 3, Oregon 4, and Miami at number 5 when it comes to the fifth best ranked team in the country. Ohio State, Diesel, is probably, in my mind, again, I don't want to speak for you here, but in my mind, maybe the most surefire team that we've seen in the first few weeks of college football. I know Penn State's really good. LSU's really good. They had a big win over Clemson. But just like when we have the conversation of what great teams are out there, what teams you really feel the most safe about, doesn't it really feel like Ohio State's way at the top of the leaderboard right now?
Yeah, they've just gotten off to that hot start. And it's really hard. I don't think you know much about any of these teams until they've played at least 2 conference games. Most of them at this point have played a power out of conference team. And then they need to get a couple of conference games under their belts, because with Ohio State, you look at the fact they played Grambling in week 2 and they beat them 70-0. They play Ohio this weekend. We're not going to know anything really about Ohio State until week number 4 when they kick off on the road at Washington. And again, they haven't played a road game yet to this point in the season. Their only peer institution that they've played is Texas, and they managed just 14 offensive points against them. Okay, I mean, Grambling, it's Grambling, and they put up 70, so that's 10 touchdowns on them. I mean, clearly Grambling was by far and away outclassed on the field. Ohio's not going to give us a great number, so maybe it's Washington, Minnesota, Illinois, which is halfway through the season before we're going to have a sense of who and what Ohio State is.
So, Tolos, who's your number one team right now? It's plain and simple. Who's your number one team now that you've seen a little bit? Diesel, to your point, Ohio State, Texas was a very close game in that big opening weekend of college football, 1 touchdown game. You said it, a very low-scoring football game, defensive battle. JB on the YouTube stream brings up an interesting point, and I'm glad he did, because I was thinking about this earlier this morning when looking at the currently ranked number 4 Oregon Ducks. JB brings up Ohio State looks like number 1, but Oregon looks good too. I'm thinking LSU isn't 3 based on stuff that's happened since they played Clemson.
That Louisiana Tech game, they did not look good in that game, LSU.
No, and again, how good does that win over Clemson look now that Clemson struggled mightily against Troy, right?
Yeah.
So that's the conversation there as well. So when we dissect this top 25 of the AP poll, Ohio State at number 1, you said it. We do have a little bit more of a sample size. We do know a little bit more, Diesel, but we don't know everything quite yet because it's still so early in the college football season. But we do know that they were battle-tested in a game. You said also it was at home, so obviously that helps, where we saw some really bright spots. Julian Sayin in that game was 13 of 20. He didn't have, by any means, a monstrous performance, but he did take care of the football. He was 13 of 20, 126 yards, 1 touchdown. We know that Jeremiah Smith's one of the best wide receivers in the country, but with JB Diesel bringing up the point with Oregon, could you argue, are you okay with the argument that maybe Oregon's the best team in college football right now based on what we've seen because of how they've just manhandled their opponents?
You could. Week 1, Montana State, a really good FCS team, by the way, 59-13 final score at home. Week 2, they got even better on offense and even better on defense against a power conference opponent. That's the big difference to me is Oregon. I mean, maybe this is the way these teams need to start scheduling. I know we would love the big time matchups in week number 1, but these teams sometimes they take a game or 2 or 3 to get their legs underneath them. But if you can do that against Montana State, figure a lot of things out, and then go play your first real test, man, it's shot out of a cannon for these guys. I can't fathom, and you can't convince me that Montana State has better talent than Oklahoma State has. It just means Oregon got better from week 1 to week 2.
You wouldn't think, right? You wouldn't think. Now, when you look at, and we'll look at individual performers as well, but Diesel, when you try to dissect the performances that we've seen in this very early blip of college football in 2025, USC, the USC Trojans, have the number 1 overall offense when it comes to team stats. Who has the best offense right now in college football through 2 games played? Southern Cal, 1,352 yards, 1,352 yards, 810 through the air, 542 on the ground, and 132 points to show for it. If you just look based on offense, if we're trying to figure out who truly, through these first 2.5 weeks, is the best college football team, Diesel, based on offense, it goes USC, Tennessee at 2, Texas Tech at 3. Arkansas has the 4th best offense thus far. Missouri at 5, Ole Miss at 6, Georgia Tech at 7 with 1,100 yards of total offense.
By the way, a vast majority of that, not even Haynes King as quarterback.
Yeah, they've been balanced. They've been balanced. Washington at 8, and then Oregon, who we were just having the conversation about, at 9, rounding out the top 10 of best offenses in college football in 2025, Diesel, Florida State. Florida State rounding it out. But you look at these offenses. Now, when you talk about college football team total offense, we all know that doesn't tell you everything you need to know. You've got to have a good defense as well. But if you're talking about Ohio State and Oregon specifically, going back to the conversation we were just having, right now, statistically, you look at Oregon, they're outperforming Ohio State by a wide margin. And in fact, Diesel, if you're looking at college football team total offense in 2025, you've got to scroll a good ways down until you find Ohio State. And I mean like way down at 854 yards of total offense. So you're talking about 20 to 25 college football teams offensively that separate Oregon and Ohio State. Oregon in the college football APs ranked 4. Do you still have the S&P pulled up as well?
I do.
What are they ranked? What's Oregon ranked in that?
Oregon is 1.
Okay.
Ohio State is 2.
And a lot of that's data driven, right?
Yep.
So they're using this metric of total offense, I'm sure, as a big part of that equation, right? You would imagine.
And evidenced by the fact that Alabama is number 3 in the S&P right now, which is obviously ludicrous. This looks strictly at the data. I don't know how it accounts for the level of competition that you're playing, but to that point, everybody so far right here inside this top 5 or so, they have a power opponent and they have an FCS or a bottom dweller opponent. Yeah. Cupcake.
If we can say that. It's really interesting. Oregon's a team that, Diesel, on our side of the world, doesn't get talked about near as much. Obviously, we know they have the Nike money. We all know that they've had talent over the past few years. But I'm okay on this Tuesday coming to the conclusion that Oregon could be the number 1 team in college football right now. I'm okay with it. I love Ohio State. I think defensively they're really good. But if you and I had to do that and rank our top 25 based on all of the data out there, based on the AP, based on the S&P, based on the R&B, even though that's not a real poll, I would probably right now, today, at this very moment, I'd probably go Oregon at 1. Wouldn't you?
You could make a very strong case for it. And here's the unfortunate thing. They don't play each other this year. Oregon and Ohio State.
That sucks.
Don't play each other. They share a few common opponents. They'll both face Penn State. I don't have Ohio State's schedule up here in front of me right now, but I see Penn State, Indiana, Rutgers, Wisconsin, Iowa, Minnesota, Southern Cal, and Washington on Oregon's schedule. I would imagine there's probably 4, maybe 5 crossover matchups over the course of this season. But we're not going to know. Like, is it entirely possible, because of the way that the AP operates and the way that the CFP voters operate a couple weeks from now, that they could just plop Ohio State at number 1, and because that's where they were early in the season, that's where they'll stay. And it's maybe not fair that those teams don't flip-flop. I mean, if Ohio State doesn't stumble and Oregon doesn't stumble, they'll probably sit there at 1-2 for a vast majority of this season.
And that's why it's kind of fun, Diesel, to really look at where we are so early in the season with a little bit of sample size of football, but we don't know everything, right? And we're stuck in that limbo of, we have these polls telling us this. We know that 6 weeks from now, we're going to have the first ever college football playoff poll. We're stuck in that weird gray area of these conversations happening because we really just don't know. And we know that the CFP is the end-all, be-all, which is fine. I'm great with that, right? I think there should be a end-all, be-all poll. But it's kind of the beauty of it. It's kind of the beauty of it. Like, there's so many different things that tell you so many different things out there. And by the way, side note, can we just go on record for a minute and talk about how how much more, in my mind, we need to talk about Dan Lanning and his success as a head football coach? Yeah. Why is this guy not being talked about as the best coach in college football right now?
He's a trash talker. He is a media darling. He's made for media the way he was going back and forth with Gundy at Oklahoma State this past weekend. I mean, he should have been all over the TV here on the East Coast, but he wasn't.
He wasn't. And that's the thing. We don't get a lot of Dan Lanning. We don't get a lot of Oregon. But my gosh, this guy, he's like 37-6. Last year, what he did is not talked about near enough. You mentioned Ohio State, Oregon playing. Well, guess what? They did play last year, and they played twice. Unfortunately, we don't get to see that this year. You know what he did last year, Diesel, in the regular season in 2024? He just won every single game in 2024. He beat Ohio State 32-31 in the regular season back on October 12th.
But he also cheated against the rules to beat Ohio State early in the season.
Well, at the time, it wasn't cheating.
It wasn't cheating, right?
Beat Penn State in the Big Ten championship. College football quarterfinal, he lost to Ohio State, who went on to win the national championship. I just think that – I know this is a rabbit trail we're running down here. I think that there's so much talked about Kalen DeBoer and all these other coaches and Ryan Day, like rightfully so. He just won the national championship. But Dan Lanning, in my mind, is as good of a college football coach in the country right now. And he's been there for, 3 years?
Start predicting the future here. Like, obviously, we know that the Big Ten has won back-to-back national championships. And whatever you want to say that says about the narrative between the SEC and the Big Ten, who's the better conference? I mean, you have to imagine that Alabama's going to come calling if they end up firing Kalen DeBoer.
Maybe they just made the wrong hire.
Maybe they did.
And should have hired Dan.
But people have been, probably throwing offers at Dan the last couple of seasons, and he's happy where he is. He's happy at Oregon.
He's got a great job.
Yeah.
We joked about it last week about maybe he'd come to Clemson one day. I think that'd be idiotic.
How much better can it get?
Yeah.
That's the real question. Autzen Stadium is unique. It's awesome. The weather up there is pretty good.
Yeah.
They've got all the money they could ever possibly need. They're in an elite conference that's winning back-to-back national championships, and I'm sure we'll be locked in a seesaw battle with the SEC for the next 10-plus seasons for national championships. I mean, what else? What else could he need? Why would you walk away from Nike money? To go chase ACC money?
No, I wouldn't.
You're not gonna do it.
He's got it made, and I just going back to my point. I think he's arguably one of the top 3 coaches in the game right now, and I really don't think it's close. I love Dan Lanning.
Buckeye Mike echoes my comments. He says, as a Buckeye fan, I love Dan Lanning. He's a great coach, and I love having him in the Big Ten. Why would he leave Phil Knight?
Is there a little sarcasm there about Buckeye Mike?
Because they beat him, in a head-to-head matchup.
Yeah, but Buckeye Mike, I wouldn't toot that horn too long, buddy.
You know he's a really good coach.
And he's going to get you. You don't play him this year. Diesel said it.
You went 50-50 with him last season.
Yeah.
I don't know how much you love him.
I'm just telling you, man, I think the world. So rounding out the conversation in terms of now that we have a sample size, now that we have football, we have Ohio State in the AP poll as 1. We have Penn State at 2, LSU at 3. Real quick on the Tigers, rather. In your mind, yes or no, Diesel, Tolos as well, LSU, the third best team in college football. Do you have a problem with that?
I do have a problem with that. I mean, LSU's offense was not world beaters against Clemson. They didn't blow me away in Death Valley, and then they looked bad against Louisiana Tech the following week. All of this is on a week-to-week basis right now. What was it, Smitty that said it was basically pass-fail for week number 1, and LSU passed. Well, you could make the argument that they failed against Louisiana Tech. They didn't lose the game, but they looked bad. They didn't look dominant against them. And that's one of those, we focused on Clemson looking bad against Troy. We focused on South Carolina not looking great and needing some second half craziness to look good on paper against South Carolina State. Other matchups where big teams went down, Florida losing. I mean, we didn't talk any about LSU looking terrible against Louisiana Tech, a program that they should dominate.
I think it's interesting. The last thing I'll say before we run off to a break, I think it's so interesting, Diesel, when you talk about these polls, to think about what I said at the very beginning of the segment. We just don't know what we don't know right now. And even though we've had football, it's still early. We still really just don't know a lot. For example, we talk about LSU being the third best team. We have to take the data that we have from 2 games for most teams, 3 for some, and use that data to allow ourselves to formulate an opinion on whether they played tonight in a Walmart parking lot neutral field diesel, LSU, Oregon. 9 out of 10 people are going to take Oregon. But LSU in the AP poll, they're ranked 3. Oregon's ranked 4. Again, I know we're splitting hairs here, but I'm just saying that just goes to show that, going back to what I said a few minutes ago, there's just still so much limbo. There's just still so much we don't know at the 9th day of September that we're trying to figure out who's this. We're trying to figure out who's that. Ohio State looks like a great team. LSU looks like a good team. They looked, to your point last week. We say they're a top 5 team. We say Oregon's a top 5 team. But I think the most important thing to remember is it truly is a week-to-week conversation. It's just like right now, Oregon looks great. Oregon could lose Saturday. And then all of a sudden our tune has completely changed. I do think it's fascinating that there's so many data points out there, yet we still have such a difficult time finding common ground on it.
Have you ever heard of the mathematical term called statistical significance?
Mm-hmm.
That's that point where you have enough data that it kind of weeds out the anomalies. We have not achieved statistical significance with any college football team, and some might say we never achieved that because we have such a small sample size of the number of games that they play, but we're not there. Every week can dramatically shift our opinion of a football team, and that's what makes college football so great. Yeah. Cole, let's move up to the NFL level in the next segment of the show. Pass-fail grade for Caleb Williams under Ben Johnson last night on game. Monday Night Football. We'll talk about it next on the Fan Upstate. You know, Cole, I truly believe that holding grudges makes you age prematurely. Look at Bill Belichick. He's only 27, but he looks 80. Because we know Bill holds grudges. If you haven't been paying attention to that whole saga with North Carolina. Well, if I'm not welcome in their facility, they're not welcome in ours. Yeah. But I am done officially. I'm putting the briefcase full of rocks that I've been carrying around for Caleb Williams. I'm putting it down. You know, it's been a full year in the NFL. I made fun of him a lot for his comments saying after a loss, I want to go home and watch Netflix and cuddle with my dog. And I had a problem with him painting his fingernails, though that's not really my biggest problem. My problem with Caleb Williams was that he knew he was going to be the number 1 overall pick, so he essentially shut down everything involved with talking to any other teams. Luckily for him, it didn't backfire on him the way that things backfired for Shedeur Sanders and the way he interviewed with other teams. And maybe that's why Caleb Williams shut down his process. I don't want to have opportunities to screw things up and have it leak and get out there that I'm not a team player or whatever it is. But Caleb Williams in his debut last night under Ben Johnson looked pretty good.
Yeah.
It wasn't an amazing performance, but it was pretty good. He looked really good in the first half. He had a couple of long runs. He had that one long touchdown run to the corner. He had the second one that was essentially called out at the 1 yard line at the very end of the game. They were down 10 with 2 minutes to go. He moved the ball down the field efficiently, got the ball right there to the 1 yard line. They ended up, didn't they throw the ball to get it to the back of the end zone for a touchdown there? Just a phenomenal job, I thought, under Ben Johnson, his debut under Ben Johnson. So I'm done hating on Caleb Williams.
You're
done.
Officially done.
Done. I promise. I promise I'll never do it again until he does something worthy of being made fun of.
That's really interesting. Number one, I did not expect that from you on this Tolo Tuesday, but you know what? I'm proud of you. That's awesome.
Thanks. It's called growth.
Yeah, you're not going to hold a grudge anymore. You're going to allow it. I will say this in all seriousness. Ben Johnson, you know, we have these conversations every few years. We have the conversations about the Kyle Shanahans of the world. We have the conversations about the Sean McVays. We did it a few years ago when Kellen Moore was still in Dallas about the Kellen Moores of the world, right? We have every few years this guy that comes along that we elect as the next offensive genius, right? The next offensive guru. Now, Shanahan's proved it. McVay's proved it. Kellen Moore's proved it. Now he's with the Saints. There's been so many great offensive minds throughout the course of the year, so many that I'm not naming, that have proven it. Ben Johnson is still in improvement mode as a head coach, right? Very much identical to Kellen Moore, who was in Dallas, in Philadelphia, a big part of their Super Bowl run. Ben Johnson, Kellen Moore, both as a head coach are in improvement mode. However, I will tell you, I am buying every bit of Ben Johnson's stock out there. To your point, he made Caleb Williams in one game look like a different quarterback. Now, could Caleb Williams come out next week and bleep the bed? Sure, he could. But guess what? Talking about sample size, we only have one game. We're talking about what we've seen. And thus far, Diesel, Ben Johnson, you know who didn't look good Sunday? The Detroit Lions. You know who Ben Johnson doesn't coach for anymore? The Detroit Lions.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, through one game, boy, does it seem like the tide could be turning on the future of the franchise of the Chicago Bears.
It does also say a lot about the value of the coach-quarterback combo / relationship. I mean, under Matt Eberflus last year, Caleb Williams looked terrible. He looked terrible. Yeah. He looked like a bust. He looked like he was going to be out of the league working at McDonald's in 5 years. But you pair him with Ben Johnson, a guy who knows what he's doing, all of a sudden he's an elite quarterback. Look at how there's countless examples of players, even over the last 5 to 10 years, who you would say that guy sucks. Sam Darnold, phenomenal example. Baker Mayfield, another great example. It took Baker going through 4 teams before he finally found a coach situation that he could succeed under. So, just a tremendous amount of credit goes to number one, Ben, number two, to Caleb Williams. Again, not amazing, 21 of 35 for 210 yards and a touchdown.
Took care of the football, right?
Yeah, took care of the ball. Phenomenal drive there at the end to put his team back in a situation to win. It's not his fault that the defense basically stopped playing in the third quarter and let J.J. McCarthy just go off, because J.J. McCarthy
21
stepped out of the shadows and didn't play last year because he had that meniscus injury. And, man, he looked good.
21 points in the fourth quarter wasn't Caleb Williams' fault, right? Allowed by Minnesota. I will say real quick to your Eberflus point, I think, Diesel, if we really step back and look at what happened, I think this just goes to show, like, this just paints the picture in the NFL that so many guys want to be promoted to head coach. And I'm not saying that a defensive-minded guy can't be a head coach, because I know it's worked. Belichick was a defensive-minded guy, right? And it worked just fine. Other coaches who have been head coaches and defensive-minded guys, it's worked. However, you go back and you do find scenarios and situations like with Matt Eberflus, who's a defensive-minded guy, who's, by the way, a defensive coordinator now for the Dallas Cowboys, and you think, oh, maybe, just maybe, and I don't know why it's a foreign concept for us to have this conversation, but maybe bringing a young quarterback into the NFL with a non-quarterback coach as the head coach, and instead we have a defensive-minded guy, maybe that's not the best scenario for a young guy to find success. And guess what? That didn't happen. Why is that such a foreign concept?
I mean, there's that old saying, there's a million ways to skin a cat, right? But in the NFL, we're seeing it play out in front of us that more often than not, there's actually just a handful of ways, just a few ways to skin that cat. And the answer usually is have yourself a creative, offensive-minded head coach and then pair him with a really good defensive coordinator. There's also that saying that people are promoted to their level of incompetence. You're good at what you do. You're a smart person. So you start climbing that ladder, and eventually you get to a point where you're in over your head and you just don't have it for whatever that position is. And that doesn't mean that you're stupid. It doesn't mean that you forgot how to coach. It just means that maybe taking on all of this isn't what you were meant to do.
Yeah.
You were meant to focus on the defense. You were meant to focus on the offense. You were meant to focus on the special teams. But your role as the CEO, that's not in your purview.
And that's why, before we get into the Vikings, that's why I hope the Saints organization is very patient with Spencer Rattler, a guy who looked good in week one, right? And on third down late in the game when they needed to put the ball in the end zone, Spencer Rattler put the ball in the end zone, but the receiver couldn't come up with the catch. And it was right in the hands of Johnson, I believe is who it was on Sunday, that dropped that football. So that's why I hope, as good as an OC as Kellen Moore was, Diesel, he's an offensive-minded guy. That's why I really, really hope, for Spencer Rattler's sake, that they give him time. They allow him and Kellen to kind of grow and not just, knee-jerk reaction. Rattler had a bad game next week. Let's pull him and put Tyler Shuck in there. I think Spencer Rattler and Kellen Moore could be a combo that maybe comes out of nowhere. I'm not saying this Saints team is going to go win it all this year, but I just think that if you give them time, Kellen Moore was really successful as OC in Dallas. He was really successful as OC in Philadelphia. Led him to a Super Bowl last year. Yeah, he had Saquon Barkley. That helps. But I just think ultimately it's all about in the NFL finding the right match, almost like a dating app, right? Finding that matchmaker, that perfect fit for a young NFL quarterback, and maybe Spencer Rattler and Kellen Moore can be that guy. What we do know is that, for example, Matt Eberflus and Caleb Williams, they weren't that perfect match. It's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to paint people into a box, and maybe you have a little more insight on this, but do you think there's any truth to the thought process of it's just harder for defensive-minded coaches to trust young quarterbacks? Like they just don't trust them. They're not speaking the same language. I know they're all football coaches, and I know they've all, the defensive coaches, they're not siloed to the point where they don't know anything about offense at all. But it's almost like that defensive-minded head coach needs the the trusty, steady hand of a veteran quarterback that he can trust and work his way in.
Well, I'll say this. It might not be as much about the trust factor for me, but the speaking the same language, 100%. You know what I mean? Like when you talk about football guys, I'm around football guys a lot at the high school level, and we are both at the college level a good bit, Diesel, and you do hear it. I mean, they're speaking two completely different languages. So I'm with you on that. Now,
and maybe it's that the defensive-minded head coach, they have that ultimate power of veto and decision-making. So if a quarterback thinks he sees something, he can't, maybe he can't articulate it exactly the right way, or maybe he and his offensive coordinator are on the same page, but ultimately it's not their decision. I mean, how many times in your life in Cole and places that you've worked and other Tolos that are out there, you think you have a really great idea, but your boss just doesn't go for it.
Yeah.
And you're like, come on, man, this is a great idea. Let's do it. It's going to work. And then he's like, I don't trust it. To me, that feels like maybe what the dynamic is like when you've got a young quarterback, young OC, and a defensive-minded head coach.
Now, how about J.J. McCarthy last night? I mean, this guy, at halftime, I was sitting there watching that game thinking, yeah, maybe, this guy didn't look too good. And then all of a sudden, he comes out in the second half, and in the fourth quarter, they put up 21 points, 13 of 20. Again, these quarterbacks, like one thing I've noticed in the NFL and a little bit in college as well, we talk about defenses being ahead. These quarterbacks aren't putting up monstrous numbers right now. I mean, McCarthy last night was 13 of 20 for 143. He did have a pick in the first half, 2 touchdowns, a QBR of 52.6, but leading that fourth quarter comeback and scoring 21 points, that says a lot about J.J. McCarthy. And in fact, in the Daily Wires in the next segment, we'll tell you just exactly what he did to break some all-time big-time records.
He could have folded.
And how big of it, like, here we are. This is why I love the NFL. This is why I love the NFL as much as I do. How big of a game was that last night? I know that a lot of Tolos out there focused on college football, whatever, but Monday Night Football, talking about two franchises that need it, two different trajectories, and Caleb Williams and this new guy that came in from Detroit, and then all of a sudden Kevin O'Connell and this new guy at the quarterback position. Both of these teams needed it last night. And one of them's 0-1, but I think Chicago could have a decent year.
I think they could be really good as well. That's going to be a tough division with Chicago, Minnesota, and Green Bay. That's going to be a tough race for first place there. And we Carolina Panthers fans, we don't have to feel as bad because Adam Thielen was a non-factor last night. I was just really hoping that was not going to be another knife in the chest, knife in the heart, if Adam Thielen had gone out there and had a great day. But he didn't, so
zero.
It's okay.
0 receptions, by the way. How about that? The over-under was set at 3.5 in terms of how many receptions. Clearly went under.
The problem is that the other former Panther, DJ Moore, had himself a day.
Yeah, he did. Pretty good guy. Pretty good player. A lot happening. We're going to get to upset pick early lanes at 4 o'clock, but next we've got to take a look around the sports world and see what else is happening. What record did J.J. McCarthy break last night? We'll tell you next. Tolos, where you at on this Tolo Tuesday? You'd think on a Tolo Tuesday you'd be here, you'd be rocking and rolling, and we've got some decent interaction on this Tolo Tuesday from you Tolos out there, but not the numbers we need. And to get those numbers up, Tolos, very simple. Mm-hmm. This is a segment, Diesel, we call Our Daily Wires. JJ McCarthy, we mentioned him in the very last segment. He led the Vikings to a comeback win on Monday Night Football, defeating the Bears 27-24 in his NFL debut. So a big win for the Vikings.
How do you compare the watchability at the end of that game to the Bills-Ravens from Sunday night?
It was good. I don't know if it was quite the same, but it was good. It was really good. 21 points in one, 22 in the other, I think, in the fourth quarter. It's crazy. In Santa Clara, California, bad news if you're a 49ers fan in the upstate today. The San Francisco 49ers know they will be without star tight end George Kittle for a little while as he deals with a hamstring, but they could also be without Brock Purdy this weekend against the New Orleans Saints. Coach Kyle Shanahan said Monday that Kittle will sit out a few weeks because of a right hamstring injury, though that announcement was expected. He also added that Purdy has a left shoulder and a toe injury, with the more serious one being the toe, the coach estimated. And not good news for the Brock Purdy, especially going against the one and the only, the mighty, the great Spencer Rattler this weekend.
You could say they're about to get toe up by the Saints.
You could. The Rattler might be in prime position to strike on Sunday. We shall see. The Philadelphia Eagles are acquiring running back Tank Bigsby from the Jacksonville Jaguars in exchange for the 26th, 5th, and 6th round pick, sources told ESPN Adam Schefter. The deal for Bigsby marks the 5th trade the Eagles have made since mid-August. They also got receiver John Mechie III, quarterback Sam Howell, and Fred Johnson. So the Eagles really stacking up some depth.
Are you telling me they don't have a lot of faith in Saquon Barkley right now or something?
No, I'm not going to tell you that. I'm not going to tell you that.
I mean, they're probably like 5th and 6th rounders.
Yeah,
don't need them. We're fine.
The Los Angeles Dodgers came so close to throwing a no-hitter for the second time in 3 games. Man, how about this? Tyler Glasnow and Blake Trinan did not give up a hit to the Colorado Rockies through 8 innings Monday night, but the night, obviously, the one that got them. Florida defensive tackle Brendan Bett apologized Monday for spitting at a USF player during a crucial moment in an 18-16 loss over the weekend. He calls his actions a terrible mistake. He drew a 15-yard penalty, ejected with about 2 minutes to go. It gave the Bulls a first down. And Diesel, we all had on our bingo card 2 weeks in a row talking about a spit taking place in the college and pro ranks.
It's incredible.
It really
is incredible. That's stupid. They keep spitting on each other.
The Atlanta Braves defeated the Chicago Cubs on Monday night by a score of 4-1. Spencer Strider on the mound tonight against the Cubbies. First pitch at 7:15. We'll have this audio for you later in the show because this is quite comical. Texas coach Steve Sarkisian quickly dismissed a question about Arch Manning's health after social media videos of the Longhorns quarterback set off a weekend of speculation. Reporter said Monday that Manning appeared to be having throwing pains. Sark cut him off and said, according to who? Did Arch ask you that? The reporter responded and said, no, it just looked as if he was. So Sark having to put somebody in their place. I'll see if I can get that audio.
Check your sources.
Yeah, check your sources. I don't know where you're getting those sources from, but even though he looks like he's having a little throwing pain there, no, he's not having throwing pain.
Give me another reason why somebody throws the ball and then immediately goes,
I can't.
And they're not in pain.
I don't know what's going on, but something really hurts all of a sudden.
I mean, if I'm Sark, I'm playing the injury up, right? Like, he's been, mediocre because his shoulder hurts.
Probably won't play.
Probably
out for the season. Heisman campaign's over. Let's go ahead and scratch that off. I'm with you there. Let's go ahead and play it up, right? I've got that audio. I'll play in just a second.
You don't get any bonus points for acting tough, Sark.
Mississippi State has been fined $500,000 by the SEC for the fans rushing the field. And last one before I get to this audio, 100% right to check. J.J. McCarthy becomes the first player ever to score 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter of his NFL debut. And he also joined Steve Young as the only starting quarterback since 1950 to direct a double-digit fourth-quarter comeback in the NFL. And real quick, Diesel, here's that audio from Sark. This is good stuff. In case you missed it, here's that audio for you.
Seems to be having some throwing pains by the
According to who?
Arch.
Arch said that to you?
No,
Oh, according to who?
it just looked like he was.
He doesn't have any.
Is there an explanation to why he was? It looked like that.
I don't know. I've never filmed any of you guys when you're using the bathroom, so I don't know what faces you make when you're doing
One
that.
more time, Diesel.
Arch Manning seems to be having
One
some
more time.
throwing pains by the.
According to who?
Arch.
Arch said that to you?
No,
Oh, according to who?
it just looked like he was.
He doesn't have any.
Is there an explanation to why he was
Grimacing.
like
I
that?
don't know. I've never filmed any of you guys when you're using the bathroom, so I don't know what faces you make when you're doing that.
Is that not a weird but funny answer there? I don't film you guys using the bathroom.
Why'd you go? Where's your head at, Steve?
Yeah, a little dirty there.
Why
right?
is that the example you pulled out of your?
Oh,
you know
boy,
what?
that's funny. Steve
Weird.
Sarkisian, ladies and gentlemen.
Weird. When we come back, Cole, it is time to start thinking about the Upset Picks Challenge, which kicks off tomorrow at 4 o'clock. So to celebrate the 24-hour heads up, I'm going to go through some of my early leans. You could do the same as well. Tolos, tell us what games you're thinking about picking. That's coming up in the next segment on the Fan Upstate. You know, Cole, some might say that I and you overthink our upset picks because we like to start thinking day or so in advance what games we might be interested in. And then for some reason, we talk ourselves into a loser and we don't score any points. And that's why I have 1 point, you have zero points in the upset picks challenge. But you can't just like throw darts at a board and expect one of them to hit unless you're my wife, who did not think at all about which game she was going to take. And she just so happens to hit on South Florida over Florida for 17.5 points. But we are now 24 hours, 23 hours and 59 minutes to be exact, from the Wire to Wire Upset Picks Challenge, week number 3 picks opening up. And I want to know from you, Tolos, what games are you thinking about taking? What is catching your eye? I've got a few. I've got a confidence level in each of these upsets that I think it could happen. And we'll take a look at the lines, see if we think they might move and shift on us a little bit in the next 24 hours, because what these lines are right now, there's no guarantee that they're going to be the same tomorrow at this time.
There's not. And I'll say this for any Tolos out there who may be new to the show. I know you already know this, Diesel, but let me just tell you a little bit about my personality. If I am good at something, I am addicted to it. I love it. I do it all the time. I love it. If I'm bad at something, I despise it. Hobbies, Diesel, no kidding, hobbies that I'm not good at. You've seen it. We've been someplace on Woodruff Road, all these little hobbies, bowling, this, that, golf. If I'm not good at it, I just completely avoid it. I don't do it because the reason is I'm a very competitive person. I'm very competitive. I didn't grow up playing board games or anything like that. I'm just very competitive, and I can't stand to lose. So I avoid things that I lose at in my life. I avoid them, and I can't stand it. And this Upset Picks Challenge, I cannot stand this stupid thing. I'm almost ready and I'm not exaggerating. I'm not like just trying. I hate losing. And the fact that I can't get a pick right, I'm so bad at this. It's frustrating, man. I want to give up.
In theory, we should both be pretty good at this.
Yeah,
we both talk college football all day. We think about it all the time. You are much more into putting money down on games than I am. So in theory, you would think it would be a little easier to at least pick the games where you think that the underdog is going to perform well against the favored team. So Cole, I want to go through some of my early leans, and you can either say, good pick, I like that one.
What's the point in that? You want me to tell you a good pick or a bad pick?
Or if you think I'm crazy for taking this one.
And by the way, real quick note, Diesel, to be very frank, the Clemson line upset me as well. It changed. It's back to 3.5 on ESPN. It was 9.5. I was going to take it. It's not.
You
so
had
Tolo's
to say something, didn't you?
Tolo's out there. Sorry. But I have a few as well. I've got a few early leans. I'll get to mine in a few minutes.
Okay. Cole, one that I'm interested in. It's not my most confident pick. I would rate this one a 2 out of 5 on my confidence scale. The Thursday night game, NC State at Robbie Ashford's Wake Forest, plus 7.5. Wake Forest kind of an enigma under Robbie Ashford. They put up 42 against Western Carolina, a weak FCS in-state opponent, and then just 10 against Kennesaw State, a team that's been in the FBS for checks notes 2 seasons. But NC State gives up a lot of points. They give up 31 points against Virginia. So how do you feel about taking a flyer? Again, I'm not super confident about this one, but it is on the list.
No, I like it a lot, actually.
Really?
And which that should tell you, don't take it. Don't take it at all. Here's the reality of it. NC State and Wake Forest, we're talking about 2 teams that can lose on any given Saturday. So to say that, no, that can't happen, yeah, I think that'd be wrong.
And it's a decent number, too. 7.5 feels like kind of right there in that sweet spot.
I like it a lot. By the way, real quick, to interrupt this, breaking news out of the NFL, I just got an email literally less than a minute ago. Jalen Carter of the Philadelphia Eagles has been suspended without pay for one game after his spitting. They call it act of unsportsmanlike conduct in last Thursday's game. Let's see. He will forego his game check, so it will take place of game 1. So suspension was week 1, right? He won't have to miss any more, but he will have to forfeit the paycheck and miss. And obviously, he already missed that game. So a little bit of news there from the NFL about Jalen Carter.
Texter RJ wants to know, do you lose points in the upset picks challenge if the game you choose does not result in an upset? Yes, you do. You lose 1 point if you incorrectly call an upset. You lose 2 points if you don't make a pick at all. Texter wants to know, can we get a Pick'em leaderboard? There already is a Pick'em leaderboard. It's up on our Facebook page and on our Twitter at TheFanUpstate. So go find that. It was posted yesterday about this time. So you can go find it 24 hours ago. Cole, I'm also looking at this one. This is a sneaky good one. Colorado plus 6.5 at Houston. Now this is Caden Salter, came over from Liberty, is now at Colorado, slinging the ball all over the place in his first 2 games as a Buffalo, versus Connor Wegman, who was at Texas A&M before heading to Houston. This is a hard one to pick because Colorado was in it with a pretty decent Georgia Tech, and they blew out Delaware, who just got to FBS. Houston smoked Stephen F. Austin and Rice. So this feels like a game that's ripe for an upset.
And you said a minute ago the 2 quarterbacks were who?
Caden Salter and Connor Wegman. Connor Wegman from Texas A&M, Caden Salter from Liberty.
So you must, and this we're talking about the Buffaloes, Dion, right?
Correct.
You must have missed the news earlier today.
Uh-oh.
Colorado is starting Ryan Staub.
Okay, mark it off the list.
And quarterback versus Houston. Does that change that for you?
Yeah, it takes my confidence level from 3 to a 1.
Yep. So big news earlier today. They announced.
Didn't know that.
Biggest, very big news. Against Houston Friday night, Ryan Staub will be the starting quarterback. So Staub began the season. Diesel as Colorado's 3rd-string quarterback. You mentioned Caden Salter. Julian Lewis also, he was behind. But he shined against Delaware on Saturday. He was 7 of 10. That's Delaware. 2 touchdowns. Dion said Tuesday he hadn't made his final decision. That was Tuesday morning. And then all of a sudden, a little while ago, they're saying they're going with the 3rd-string guy. How about it?
Cole, could I interest you in a flyer of New Mexico plus 15.5 against the 0-2 UCLA Bruins under Nico Iamaleava? They've got to win a game at some point this year, right? I mean, how much?
Do they?
I mean,
do they?
I don't know that they're going to go over.
I don't hate it. I don't hate it.
I know
it's a big spread.
New Mexico hasn't looked great. They're 1-1, but they're not really lighting up the scoreboard.
It's
or holding teams.
That's a Friday night game.
It's a weird night of the week.
Yeah, I like that. I like it.
Maybe.
Yeah, I like
maybe
it.
interested in
I can
taking
take
a
that
risk.
15, and it's the Rose Bowl. Are you kidding me?
I mean, if you get it right, you got 15.5. You get it wrong, you still have 0. It's no big deal.
Yeah, I'm going to have 0. I do like that. I do like that. I do
maybe
like
I put that one on Cole's radar.
Yeah,
how about
maybe
that?
So
844-326-3663. Spartanburg J, I missed my pick last week. Probably got to go big. 10 points or more this week. Justin L says picking the smaller school matchups like Sun Belt and Conference USA games have helped me. Margins are slimmer. I won't get a pick right again after saying this. That comes from Justin L.
Justin L, man, I like the confidence.
How about this one, Cole? Do you think this one might be the most popular pick of the week? Vanderbilt plus 4.5 against South Carolina. I feel like Vanderbilt has a really good shot of upsetting South Carolina. I'm putting this one at a 5 out of 5 confidence meter. That's not me saying that I think Vanderbilt will absolutely upset South Carolina, but on a scale of 1 to 5, this could be an upset. I feel really good saying this could be an upset.
You know, this is very fascinating because it's 4.5 points. Is it points on the board? Yeah, it is. Is it a lot of points? No, it's not. But in terms of the game itself, and we're not going to spend 10 minutes on the game itself here, but I will tell you this. I watched South Carolina against South Carolina State on Saturday. I also saw what they did in Atlanta against Virginia Tech, and I also saw what what Vanderbilt did to Virginia Tech. Diesel, today, on this Tuesday on the 9th day of September, I think Vanderbilt wins the game outright. I really do.
I think Vegas has it wrong on the line?
I don't know if Vegas has it wrong. I do understand why it's 4.5. Two reasons. Number one, South Carolina's 11 in the country, right? Number two, it's at South Carolina. That's worth 3 points right there. So if you take what Vegas, look into the heart of what Vegas is really telling you here, they believe South Carolina is like 1.5 better than Vandy. I would even say then, I don't know if South Carolina's 1.5 better than Vandy. I think this is worrisome. I think South Carolina, we talked about it yesterday. We'll talk to Jack Veltri here in a few minutes. Right now, today, I'd pick Vanderbilt. I just wish, however, I'll tell you why I won't choose this game because it's only worth 4.5 points.
Got to get on the board somehow, though.
I know, but
maybe if you already had like 12 or 15 points, you might take this one to start adding to your lead.
Yeah. I mean, right now, today, if you had to pick this game, who would you pick?
I'd pick Vanderbilt.
Yeah,
I think Vanderbilt's going to beat them. I really do. Here we go, Cole. My next one, this one might be the sexiest pick as far as I'm concerned. Arkansas plus 7.5 at Ole Miss. Arkansas is spreading the ball around really nicely. They got a great quarterback in Talon Green. They've got 8 wide receivers averaging 12 yards or more per reception. They are going big play after big play after big play. Talon Green, 72%. He averages 10.7 yards per carry when he runs the ball. Also, that dude is a weapon for Arkansas.
Arkansas is in the top 10 of total offense in college football. So they're moving the football. We really talked about it in the very first segment. I don't hate that. I don't hate that at all. Ole Miss is interesting, though. It is against Ole Miss, right? I didn't make that up.
Correct.
Okay. Ole Miss is interesting because I think Ole Miss could be a sneaky good team this year because they're not talked about. They're not getting the hype that they normally get, like they got last year with Jackson.
Drive Lane crazy.
I know. It really is. But I would say somewhere in the middle on this one. Don't hate it. Don't love it. But you know what? It's an SEC matchup. So you never know. They've got a good, potent offense, man. I don't absolutely hate it.
And Cole, my last one that I'm interested in, Old Dominion plus 6.5 on the road at the 0-2 Virginia Tech Hokies. The Monarchs quarterback Colton Joseph is the leading passer and rusher on the team. If he has a monster game, they can win this game. ODU held their own at Indiana. I think they lost by 13 points in that game, and they stomped NC Central. Are we saying Virginia Tech starts 0-3 after a home loss to an in-state G5?
You know, Old Dominion could have won the game. However, I just ultimately think at the end of the day, Virginia Tech's played 2 good teams out of the gate. Kyron Drones, do I see them dropping 3 in a row? Not really. Old Dominion, we saw last year in Columbia, though, out of the gate was tricky. Carolina won about, 4 points a season ago? Mm-hmm. So, no, I mean, I don't hate that. I just ultimately think, like Virginia Tech, they have some talent. They're not a terrible football team. They opened as an ACC team with 2 SEC schools. They opened with South Carolina and Vanderbilt, which I know South Carolina and Vanderbilt aren't looked at as the traditional powerhouses, Diesel, in the SEC. But you know what? Vanderbilt's putting up points.
Coming up in the world.
Putting up points. This isn't the SEC from 2010 anymore, right? Don't hate it. What's the spread on that one again?
6.5.
Ooh, God, they think it's going to be that close?
That's why it's interesting.
Ooh, wow.
A touchdown game.
6.5.
On the road for Old Dominion.
6.5. I'd probably, if I had a pick, I'd probably take Virginia Tech.
There's a lot of FCS matchups this weekend. That's why there's a lot of games that don't have spreads this weekend. And of course, when they're playing G5s, you're usually sitting looking at 22.5, 30, 35 point spread. So these are the ones, Cole, that I think are close enough that might be worth taking. Old Dominion, Virginia Tech, Arkansas, Ole Miss, Vandy, South Carolina, Colorado, Houston, NC State, Wake Forest, and the big one, if you feel like getting risky, New Mexico plus 15.5 at UCLA.
It's a lot of points. Tolo, what's your Tolo's out there? What is your early lean? What are you looking at for tomorrow's Upset Picks Challenge? I'll say this, just in terms of getting on the board, I did look at Clemson for Georgia Tech. It's only 3.5 points. But then again, Georgia Tech's got a good shot at beating Clemson. Dabo Swinney said today that if we continue to play like this, we're not going to win many football games, right? We'll go into what Dabo said more at 6 o'clock, but ultimately, that's a coin flip game. Georgia Tech is at home, so that helps. It's a noon game. Might be tricky there. Look, it's only 3.5 points, though. Is it worth really using 1 week, Diesel?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's why you got to start looking at that 6, 7, 8.5 point range.
Or more like 24.5 with South Alabama and Auburn.
He's going to get crazy and go for it.
I did look at South Alabama over Auburn. I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, that'd be one of those like wild, crazy, can you believe that happened upsets as Auburn's favored by I can't even say it. Started coughing. 24.5 points.
Yeah, but Gio Lopez isn't there anymore. He's terrible at North Carolina.
I guess so. It's interesting. To your point, a lot of games without spreads. North Texas, Washington State, looked at that one. It was 6.5. Pittsburgh, West Virginia, looked at that. That was 7.5 point spread. North Carolina, Richmond still does not have a spread on it. Richmond, by the way, who just beat
they're
Wofford.
FCS.
Just beat Wofford, over the weekend. So we'll see if they can take care of business. But ultimately, man, here's where I am. I have no strategy. I'm just so frustrated. I don't know what I'm going to do. 24 hours from right now, I'll have a pick. I just don't have a strategy as of right now.
That's okay. It is what it is. You got time to start thinking about it in Tolos. You do as well. Remember, the challenge opens at 4 o'clock on Wednesdays. We lock the spreads in at 3 o'clock on Wednesdays. So that gives you an hour to go look, take it all in, start thinking about some things. These lines that we just talked about, they might move around a little bit. Obviously, I would expect that Colorado 6.5 at Houston to move now that the quarterback starter has been named.
I did look at Florida LSU, though.
Really?
Yeah, I did look at Florida LSU. LSU is favored by 8.5. That game's in Baton Rouge. So you say, Cole, there's no chance. No chance DJ Lagway is going to go down there. But they just they're coming off a tough loss.
Man, I saw some video last night. It's tough to watch. Some dude the guy at the very tippy top of Death Valley in Baton Rouge is filming a fan come up the stairs 3 different times with multiple beers in his hands. And then by the end of the game, this guy is stumbling, trying to get down. He resorts to sitting on the stairs and going step by step by step because he's too drunk to get down the stairs. Problem is, this guy is stumbling, fumbling, bumbling, could go tripping over the wall and down onto the lower section, and nobody gets up to help the guy.
I'll tell you this real quick before we run to a break and hear from Jack Veltri. If I had a pick right now, and this might tell Tolos which game to stay away from, but if I had to pick right now, I'd take Texas A&M over Notre Dame at 6.5. Notre Dame at home is favored by 6.5 points. I like Texas A&M. I like the spot. They've got a really good offense. They're 2-0. Notre Dame at home. Could they start 0-2? Maybe. I like A&M, man. I like that game a lot.
Are you sure you didn't just say that because JT and Greer texted in, says he wants to take Texas A&M
I hadn't looked at Texas
over Notre Dame?
I hadn't even looked at
It's
Texas
JT and Greer that messages in all the time to ask who you took.
Sorry, JT and Greer. I won't pick that one. I'll stay away. Never
Buckeye
mind.
Brian
Forget what I
says
said.
the Upset Picks Challenge is complete luck for everyone.
Forget it. It has a lot to do with it, man. It really does. Diesel's going to tell you about MTC Federal. Then we'll have Jack Veltri of Gamecocks Central next right here on the Fan Upstage. Let's talk a little South Carolina Gamecocks in this very segment. Tolos, if you have a question that may or may not be asked, we invite you to text it in on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line at 844-326-3663. Jack Veltri of Gamecock Central is joining us right now, as he does every single Tuesday at this time. Mark it on your calendar, Gamecock fans. We'll talk Gamecocks with Jack Veltri on Tuesdays during football season. Jack, we'll get into the game Saturday night upcoming against the Commodores and the Fighting Diego Pavias. But when you have now had a few days to look back at what you saw, at what I saw late into Saturday night, early into Sunday morning between South Carolina and South Carolina State, do you feel like South Carolina Gamecock fans out there should probably take away a few things from that game, but maybe just flush the entirety of it? Or do you think it matters more than most think?
Jack, you got us?
Let's try that again. Jack, can you hear me now?
I got you, Cole. Appreciate you having me on.
Listen, man, this is what happens when you pre-record an interview like we did today. We pre-recorded the interview at 2:30, and there's this little red button at the very top of the board that says input. And you have to hit it once to go into audition, and you have to put it back in the program. And guess what? I forgot to put it back in the program. So I will re-ask you, apologize for that. But when you talk about looking ahead, we'll talk about the Vanderbilt game, Jack, in a few minutes. But where do you stand on what happened Saturday night? Are you of the mindset that you flush it and move on because of the wackiness of the game? Or are you of the mindset that maybe you do take a little more away than most might from the game against South Carolina State?
You definitely try and learn from that game, because I think there are concerns from that game. Like, the offense really did not do much, especially in the first half, where you had a little bit over 100 yards and you really struggled to get the ball moving and score touchdowns against SC State. And I think you got to look at the offensive line, and the run game weren't great. So the offense is definitely where I would look first towards, okay, we got to correct these issues. You can't necessarily wipe it away just because you had a long lightning delay and the game didn't start on time and it's a FCS opponent and all that. No, I think you got to really look back at that game and figure out, okay, what went right, what went wrong, and let's try to correct it and be better moving forward. And that's seemingly what South Carolina has done. One interesting thing from today that I think you guys will find interesting is that the offensive line seemingly had some communication issues, or just the offense in general had communication issues, where I think it was Kason Henry today, offensive tackle for the Gamecocks on the right side, was just saying that there were about 6 or 7 calls that they just couldn't hear. Wow. And again, that's in a stadium that, granted, was very full at the start, but again, it wasn't a big, it wasn't the sellout crowd that you were anticipating just because of the delay and whatnot. So, that's a little concerning right there, but I think that's something that they were working on today in practice to try and be better at communicating and making sure everybody's hearing the calls.
Jack, you've covered football for a long time. Cole's covered football for a long time. Why do you think it is that some teams just struggle with long delays? I know that football players are creatures of habit, but, coaches, they've been through this before. They should have some experience trying to get these guys redialed in. Why do you think so many players, and in your time talking to players, have they told you why it's just such a weird thing to turn that faucet back on?
I'm not sure exactly, Diesel. I think it's more so just, again, like you said, they're creatures of habit in sports, and you are so used to being in a routine. And when that routine gets messed up, I can imagine it's going to be a little bit of an adjustment for sure. And it definitely was. I mean, they had to sit there in total. I know it's a 2.5 hour delay on the books, but I mean, that delay started at like 5:30 and they didn't play until 19. So we're talking about a near 4 hour delay where they're hanging out in the locker room and stuff. And, I don't know what all they're doing in there during that time, but that's a long time to kind of just be waiting around, waiting to play again. So, and then you go out to the field and it's not your normal routine of, okay, we're going to stretch, we're going to do all this, we're going to do that. We'll put on the pads after that. And they're usually out there for about 60 minutes before the game. I mean, this was about 30 minutes before the game even began, and you're just now ramping up. So I'm going to give them a little bit of slack just because of the circumstances and stuff for why the performance was so sluggish at the beginning of the game. But notice how it didn't affect SC State. I mean, I don't know what the deal was there, but again, I think that part of it you try to flush a little bit, and you kind of give them a little bit of grace because, again, the circumstances were not what it normally is. And I think that won't be an issue for Saturday at all.
Jack, go into detail a little more, if you can, on what you talked about there at the very beginning of the interview with communication issues, something that they've been working on today in practice. Let me ask you this. Specify that down to the position group. Is it the offensive line specifically that's having those communication issues?
Yeah, that's what it seems to be. We were talking with Case and Henry, like I said, and also Boaz Stanley, South Carolina starting center. And that seemed to be the main thing, was that they were focusing on working on communication during practice. And Boaz Stanley was just saying about speaking loudly and clearly and making sure they're all on the same page, because they have to play as a unit. And if one guy can't hear something, then it's going to mess everything up, So, and I even asked Shane about that today, because, if my thought process is, I think a lot of people feel this way, if you can't hear things when it's a game against an FCS opponent at Williams-Brice Stadium, your home field, and it's not even a sellout crowd, what's the plan when you go to LSU and you play all these big opponents on the road and stuff? So that's, I think, something that is a little bit worrisome, but at the same time, they worked on it today in practice to try and make sure that everyone knows what the play is, nothing's getting messed up that way, and that they're ready to go for this weekend.
What'd Shane say about that, Jack?
Kind of just the same thing in that, I'm trying to pull it up here.
You're good.
South Carolina just has to be louder. And they gotta like
the players have to be louder. Is that what you're saying? The players have to communicate louder.
Yeah. So I'm looking back to some notes here, and what he basically said was, in order to fix the issue that they have, because again, he knows they're going to play LSU, they're going to be playing Ole Miss, Texas A&M. They're going to be playing in some really hostile environments this year. And what he was basically saying is that it starts with Lenores, it starts with Boaz, the communication, and just talking louder, so that way they can operate more efficiently.
At Jack T. Veltri is where you can find him on Twitter, on X. We invite all of our Tolos to go give him a follow. If you do that, you'll notice that his header photo is a screenshot from Star Wars. And I'm going to ask you an off-the-wall question here, Jack. I'm going to assume, because this is your header, that your love of Star Wars runs deep. Am I right about that?
Oh, you got that right.
Okay. So obviously the debate for 50 years now has been who shot first, Han or Greedo. Now let's bring that conversation to what we saw last week in the season opener in the NFL with Dak and Jalen Carter from the Eagles. We know that Jalen connected with the spit, but we also know that Dak did spit first. So do you think Dak deserves any kind of punishment at all because he's got terrible aim?
From having terrible aim, maybe it's not his teammates, but I don't think so. I mean, look, Jalen Carter, that was disgusting what he did. I thought it was just really stupid. And again, this is a guy that is one of the Eagles' best defensive players, so he's got to be smarter out there. But I don't think it's a Han and Greedo situation. It's pretty clear that the spit came straight out of Carter's mouth.
Meanwhile, I have no idea what y'all talking about. I'm like, of course, Spanish, I have no idea, but it's okay. Jack, let's go back to, you know what? I'm not going to preface the question because I want your answer to be your answer. I'm not going to lead you. I'm not going to ask you a leading question here, okay? As of today, the 9th of September, what's the position group that has the most concern?
I do think it is. I'll say this. It's probably either the offensive line or the secondary. Now, let me preface why I say that. The offensive line, I don't really think the offensive line – I think the offensive line issue can be fixed. Again, the communication seems to be the number one thing that they are trying to work through right now. But also, I mean, the blocking has got to be better at times, right? And it's not going to be perfect, but I thought the blocking was good on both of the touchdowns that Carolina scored the other night in the second half. But again, it wasn't great against a FCS-level defense. I don't care how good SC State is. You should be manhandling them considering you're an SEC offensive line. But then the secondary, they've gotten beat on some 50-50 balls and one-on-one coverage, and they gave up a few, over the middle type of throws to SC State. And even in the Virginia Tech game, they gave up 5 explosive plays. So those are probably the 2 position groups that I'm worried about, especially with a team like Vanderbilt that loves to throw the football around now that Diego Pavia's got his weapons back from last year, but they also added some pieces in recruiting. That's going to be tough and a big challenge for this weekend.
Jack, last season we saw Lenore Sellers take some time to really get things going, and then he pops later on in the season. Vanderbilt's going to be a tough test, and obviously we've seen Lenoris, I wouldn't say struggle, that's not the right word, but not look as crisp as we thought he might out of the gate. What does Vanderbilt do defensively that you think might give Lenoris a chance to pop and really open up against them? Or would you say that's not really this weekend is not the game where you think that's going to happen?
No, I mean, it's got to happen this weekend. I mean, look, there is no more holding your punches, waiting for the right opportune moment to do everything. You gotta, this is SEC play. I don't care if it's Vanderbilt or Missouri or Kentucky, whoever the game's against. These are the games that count the most now. And, Vanderbilt, if you look, we saw what they did this past weekend against Virginia Tech. I mean, Shane was literally saying today, this is the best Vanderbilt team that he's faced in his tenure at South Carolina. So, look, you hold back your punches. You don't let Lenoris go out there and do his thing like we know he can. That's going to be a big issue. So I would fully expect whatever play calls Mike Shula has in store ready to go for Lenoris, I would expect them to, I don't know about throwing the kitchen sink out there because I think they have tried a lot of things so far. But we do need to see more comfortability with Sellers running and stuff because we know he can do it. It just, for whatever reason, I'm not sure what exactly it is, it just hasn't felt like Lenoris has ran the way we know he can so far this season.
It's interesting. I don't know if Beamer, Jack commented on this today or yet this week, but when you look at the common opponents, obviously it's helpful to have common opponents, but it's also rare to have common opponents this early in the season, right? Do you put a lot of stock, a lot of value into the common opponent conversation when looking at how this team played Virginia Tech compared to how South Carolina played them?
Not really.
Really? Okay.
I mean, a little bit. Okay. South Carolina, the way they played in week 1 against Virginia Tech, I mean, look, it is what it is. It's week 1 of the season. Everyone is kind of just starting off in week 1. I will say the only thing I really do take away from the Vanderbilt Virginia Tech game, the main thing I see is the fact that they went into a hostile environment and they beat the brakes off of the Hokies in the second half. I mean, that is something that you have to take into consideration with this weekend, and that Vanderbilt has been through a really tough environment already on the road, and that's what it's going to be like this weekend. So, I'm sure that definitely helped them a lot in terms of confidence, but you also have to look at the fact that, again, this is a different Vanderbilt team. This is not the old Vanderbilt where they're bottom of the SEC, the punching bag of the conference. This is a team that will go out there, try to throw the first punch, and try to knock you down.
Talking to Jack Veltri, Gamecocks Central. Oscar Attaway, 21 carries so far on the season compared to Rasul Faison's 12. Assuming everybody stays healthy, would you say that roughly 2-to-1 ratio of touches is something that we're probably going to see continue over the course of the season, or do you think there may be a transition a little bit more towards Faison?
Tough to say right now. I think for this weekend, for the time being, I think it is going to continue to be that. But at some point, I think Carolina will figure out, okay, here's our true number 1 running back. Here's the guy we're going to rely on the most. Whoever has the hot hand going into a specific game, I think that's who they rely on. Now, right now, I think Attaway is probably your better back right now, but we all know what Faison can do when he is at his best. So they're different in a lot of ways. I think Oscar is much more of that hard-nosed, fight for every single yard runner, while I think Faison's a little bit more, I don't know if calculated is the right word necessarily, but like he's strategic with the way he moves and tries to, be dynamic on the field. So it's a nice 1-2 punch to have, but you need more production out of them because 41 yards last week against SC State's defense is nowhere near good enough.
Yeah. Well, you stole it right out of my mouth there, Jack. You need more production from the running backs. You're right. It wasn't good enough on Saturday night. If I'm a Gamecock fan and I'm asking Coach Beamer, I'm worried about the run game, especially playing a Vandy team that can score. If I am going 3 and out and can't stay on the field and can't put together long drives, that's a major concern for me if I'm a Gamecock fan going into Saturday night. In your mind, is that more on the running backs or is that more on the offensive line or a little bit of both?
A little bit of both. I think that is clear. I think, number one, the offensive line probably needs to do a better job getting some push up front and creating holes for these guys to run through. But also at the same time, like it's up to the running backs when there aren't holes, you got to find ways to get upfield and go for more than the 3-4 yards they seemingly have been going for most carries this season. We haven't really seen those big breakout runs. Like the one from Faison week 1, yeah, sure, it was a great run that he had to break out of a tackle on. That's what they're going to have to do, honestly, if they can't find the holes up front. But the hope, honestly, is that they are able to get through some holes. The offensive line does their job. That allows the running backs to make it a little bit easier to get upfield.
Jack, we know how special a player Diego Pavia is. What do you think the game plan is going to be to try to slow him down? Is it going to be hang back and make him beat you in zone coverage? Do you think we could see South Carolina spy him quite a bit? How do you slow down Diego?
Now that, I mean, Shane was mentioning a little bit today, the fact that Vanderbilt is so much better trying to throw the deep ball. That's probably, I would say, somewhere where South Carolina really needs to focus in on, make sure you take that ability away from him. But also, we know he's a good running quarterback. So it's tough because, I mean, this time last year, I don't feel like Vanderbilt had the same type of weapons that they do now in terms of throwing the ball downfield as much as they seemingly are this season. So it makes it tough. If you're really asking me, I do think you try to take away the run first and foremost, because that's something that he'll always have up his sleeve. And then I think you take your chances downfield. Because, again, I don't think South Carolina DBs have played bad necessarily. It's just they have gotten beat in a lot of 50-50 balls. It's time for them to go out there and make the plays that they need to.
Jack, you're the best, man. As always, we appreciate you, and we'll do it again next Tuesday. See you Saturday.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. See you then.
Jack. Absolutely.
Jack Veltri, Gamecock Central. Really insightful. Always insightful interviews from Jack Veltri.
Yeah.
Not saying today's was an anomaly, Diesel, but really good stuff there. If you're a Gamecock fan, if you missed it, go back on the free Odyssey app. You can go to chapters anywhere you get your podcast. You can find that as well. But that communication thing to me is fascinating. I mean, you're expecting the guys just to talk louder? Like, is that – I'm not saying that's wrong. That's concerning to me.
Well,
man.
when it's a home game and it's a smaller crowd than normal, and you still can't hear each other, that's going to be a completely different world when you're going on the road.
It's going to be different
SEC.
this Saturday, too. That play's going to be nuts Saturday night.
When we come back, Cole, we talked about it already, how amazing that late Sunday night game was and how great last night's Monday night football game was. I'm going to quiz you. Do you think any of the games that we have coming up this weekend, the big-time matchups, have a chance to stack up to Bills-Ravens week 1? That's next. Cole, you hate to say that the best game of the NFL season was played in week number 1. That would not be good for the NFL. I mean, they probably aren't going to care much because the ratings are going to be great all season long. But think about that, man. We had a phenomenal first Sunday night game against the Bills against the Ravens. But I wonder if any of the games being played this weekend have the potential to be that style of game, like a high-scoring, big comeback, wild finish kind of game call. I'm going to throw a couple options out there at you. We got about 3 minutes here in this segment.
Okay.
Thursday night football, Washington at Green Bay. Jaden Daniels, Jordan Love over under 48.5. Packers favored by 3.5 at home. So it's essentially a coin flip game.
Oh, that's
a good one, right?
Good one, man.
Yeah.
Does it match Bills Ravens? I don't know about that, but that's a fascinating game. I love it. I'd watch it tonight.
We also have a Super Bowl rematch, Eagles at the Chiefs. Basically a 50-50 toss-up when you look at the matchup predictor.
Interesting game just because it's a Super Bowl matchup, right?
Yeah, but are the Chiefs fading a little bit?
Maybe they're not I think they
dominant.
are. I think they are.
Yeah.
I think they're fading a little bit. So I'd say no to this one living up to the hype. I mean, would I be shocked?
Yeah.
No, I would be shocked. But again, going back to that Bills-Ravens game, that Bills-Ravens game was so good. I'd lean no on this one.
Every empire has to fall eventually, right? And then lastly, Cole, last option, Chargers at the Raiders. Again, over under 46.5 points. Chargers favored by 3.5 on the road. 60-40 split, matchup predictor. Any interest in Chargers Raiders? Think it could be an instant classic?
The weird thing is the Raiders just don't move the meter for me much. Like maybe they should, but they don't. Chargers are good. I mean, they're a really good team, and I was really impressed with what they did in the first week of the season. But I don't know. For whatever reason, the Raiders just haven't been overwhelmingly attractive.
I think Eagles Chiefs is a fascinating game simply because it's a rematch. But we've already had an elite matchup on a Sunday night. We've had an elite matchup, instant classic on a Monday night. The NFL could really use an instant classic Thursday night game. Commanders, Packers. You got two really good young quarterbacks. Micah Parsons is on the field. As much as that hurts you, this one could be really good.
No, it could be, and it wouldn't surprise me one bit for that game to be the best game of the week. That one could be a lot of fun. Want to remind you, Tolos out there, that Sports Talk on the Fan Upstate is presented by Paramount Plus. Sylvester Stallone is back. The original hit series Tulsa King this season. Dwight faces his most dangerous adversaries yet, forcing him to fight for everything he's built and protect his empire. Stream the new season of Tulsa King on Sunday, September 21st, exclusively on Paramount Plus. Speaking of NFL games this weekend, Diesel, let's do the same for college. Maybe, just maybe, the most intriguing college football slate this weekend. Want to grade you Tolos out there on, or just maybe gauge you Tolos on where your interest lies, because there are a lot of big games to choose from this weekend. We'll get into it and hear from you next. Well, it's only Tuesday. It's a Tolo Tuesday, by the way. But we are already looking ahead. That's what we do, right? We react. We overreact about what happened last Saturday, last weekend, and then we turn the page to what could happen 1 hour ago. Diesel, you and I gave some early leans for the Upset Picks Challenge, which opens in less than 24 hours, by the way, tomorrow at 4 p.m. when you and I will be live at Ingles at 8650 Asheville Highway in Boiling Springs. It's a Springfield location right across from Mountain View Prep. Come see us tomorrow if you want an Ingles gift card in your hand. But we were looking at some early leans for the Upset Picks Challenge, and while doing so, we stumbled across the fact that this might be the best weekend thus far of college football. Do you agree with that, Tolos, out there at 844-326-3663? Because opening weekend, Diesel, was pretty good. You had Ohio State, Texas. You had Clemson, LSU.
Yeah, Bama, Florida State.
Bama, Florida State. But could I offer you the slate that's coming up this weekend of LSU, Florida, Miami, USF, Georgia, Tennessee, Notre Dame, A&M, South Carolina, Vandy, both 2-0, by the way, Clemson, Georgia Tech, and Ole Miss, Arkansas. I know it's not maybe as sexy as a normal top weekend in college football, but boy, this might be one of the better ones of the year, right?
Yeah, there's some really fun storylines here. You know, you got the gunslinger and Diego Pavia going up against a guy that could backdoor his way into not backdoor, that's not the right word to use, but could ascend and come from sort of back in the pack to be a Heisman Trophy finalist. That's a great storyline. USF upsetting two teams in a row, facing Miami. Miami, obviously, they don't want to be the third team that gets upset by the USF Bulls.
Boy, wouldn't that be bad?
That would be wild. And that one, I don't have the line directly in front of me, but I think that one was somewhere in the 15.5, 16.5 range.
It's a hefty one.
That's a big one.
Yeah.
Somebody's going to take it, right? I mean, they're going to keep riding the hot hand and see if USF can do it 3 weeks in a row.
They are. I'll tell you this. I look at the games this weekend, and I do find myself fascinated by almost all of them. And Tolo's out there. If we need to rank them, we can do that as well in terms of where your interest lies for these games. Here's how you can get in touch with the show. If you're new to the show, you can text the Hub City Spartanburgers text line at 844-326-3663. Phone lines just so happens to be the same number. You can call the show. Phone lines are open at this very second. Bam, I just opened them up. You can call if you want in on the conversation. But let's try to figure out storyline for storyline. Let's do it that way. Because you and I always do like, LSU, Florida, two good teams, whatever. We can get into the X's and O's all we want. But let's rank these bad boys by storylines. Now, Diesel, because we are doing a radio show in South Carolina, there are going to be local storylines that, are pushed to the top. And Tolos, want to hear from you on these storylines. Want to hear from you where you rank them based on the storyline. So between the matchups, again, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 that I threw out there for you. Again, LSU, Florida, Miami, USF, Georgia, Tennessee, Notre Dame, A&M, South Carolina, Vandy, Clemson, Georgia Tech, and Ole Miss, Arkansas. Let's start at the bottom and work our way to the top. Of those 7, Diesel, of those 7 Tolos at 844-FAN-PHONE, FANFONE, which of those piques your interest the least?
God, it's hard.
It's hard. There's some good ones.
Can I go 1F?
That's what I'm saying.
1G, because these are all really good games.
And you're going to have to choose because the time slots will tell you on Friday during the Friday show where these games fall in terms of the time slots. But at some point Saturday, if you do choose to sit on the couch and watch football all day long, you're going to have to choose between some of these unless you have the quad
I liked it.
setup.
The one bad thing that the Roku ESPN app doesn't do yet, it doesn't let you select which games go in the four corners.
The YouTube TV finally just started allowing you to do that.
Right. It's currently curated for you. So if you want to watch, for me, if I want to watch some like random G5 game mixed in with the Miami USF game, I can't do that. I have to have multiple. I still have to have multiple screens.
You know what's
going.
so crazy about this? This is how bad we are as a society. This is just how bad us humans are. Like, this is me. I love the quad setup. I love it. But I'm at a tailgate Saturday in Columbia. I was there most of the day. And the TV we were watching, it was a big TV, had the quad setup. So there's probably 15, 20 people at the tailgate watching the game. And, like, that's fine, but maybe this is just because I'm very ADHD. I can't focus on one game if I've got four on. I just can't. Size has a lot to do with it. So Iowa was playing. I was wanting to watch. It was a good game. Iowa State, that was a really close game. We ended up putting the one game on. My point being, I don't know. I think I've turned.
So you're getting older, Cole. That's the thing.
What's your name?
You know, we want the illusion of choice, but then when we have too much choice, we don't want that choice after all.
That's
we want to be
what I'm
able
saying.
to focus in on something. Yeah, there's a movement right now, Cole. People are getting rid of their smartphones and they're going to. I don't know the word. Dumb phone's not the right
Dumb
word
phone.
for it, but
You
it's
said
like
dumb phone. You said
it's not. Well, okay, dumb phone, but basically your phone operates like one of those Kindle e-readers where it's black and white.
Yeah.
The refresh rate is really slow. It's meant to keep you away from your phone, even though it can still do all of those things, but not very well.
So a lot of interaction coming in on the text line, 844-326-3663. We'll get to that in a second. It is weird, though. It's bad that we say that, but that's where we are. We want to rank these games in terms of storylines. Which ones interest us? It's 1 to 7 of the 7 games I chose. Let's go to the phone lines first, though, and go ahead and knock this one out. This ought to be a banger on this Tolo Tuesday, right? Dewey wants to chime in, our daily Dewey at 844-326-3663. What's on your mind, Dewey?
Oh, yes. Those SEC games, they present a bunch of good upset potentials, but I'm seeing Florida over LSU.
Ooh.
That would be a big one.
The most interesting or the wildest upset?
Well, a little of both. I don't think it'll be a wild upset. Florida's, they're okay, and they did crap the bed last week, but that coach he's going to be playing for his job.
You know what?
And they got a little bit of a push to try to save his job.
I kind of agree with Dewey.
LSU played Clemson, and they did okay, but I don't believe LSU is as great as people make them out to be. So I think that would be a good one. And I like to see Ole Miss go down from Arkansas because I don't like Lane Kiffin.
Okay. Let me ask you this, Dewey. If you had to rank them, what would be the one that intrigues you the most and the one that intrigues you the least?
Oh.
You mean read them off again?
Yes.
LSU.
Yeah.
Ready?
Yes.
I can't do what I love. LSU, Florida, Miami, USF, Georgia, Tennessee, Notre Dame, A&M, South Carolina, Vandy, Clemson, Georgia Tech, and Ole Miss, Arkansas. The most and the least.
Miami and the Southern Florida.
Yeah,
team,
South Florida.
It might be interesting to South Florida because of what they did to Florida. And I wouldn't mind seeing that happen to Miami either because Miami sucks. And I don't like Carson, whatever his name is. And
are you going to call in and tell Madcraft off if South Florida gets the upset, Dewey?
I'll think of something. That'd be
okay. And then what's the one that intrigues you the most before we let you go, or the least? I'm sorry, the least.
The least, Arkansas and Ole Miss, because as much as I want Arkansas to upset Ole Miss, that's not going to happen. Arkansas has been terrible for years now, and they still suck.
Thanks, Dewey.
They've got a really good quarterback, and it's Sam Pittman, maybe fighting to save his job over Lane Kiffin, the trash talker.
I know it's good not to. I mean, I don't know if it's good to say this, but I actually agree with a lot of what Dewey said today. Does Dewey know ball?
Have you been drinking today?
Does Dewey know ball?
Wow.
I mean, is that where we are? Like, I agree with. Like, tell me before we get back to the list. LSU, Florida. To his point, LSU hadn't looked like offensively against Clemson. Were they bad, or was Clemson's defense really good? Last week, LSU was meh, right? I'm just saying. Like, he's right on Napier coaching for his job right now, isn't he?
This is DJ Uiagalelaway's chance to show that he is a quality quarterback. And to me,
did you just Uiagalelaway?
Yeah, I did.
Wow.
Uiagalelaway.
Uiagalelaway.
But to me, like, that's why this one's probably the least compelling of all of them. And it's hard. It's hard to say that any of these games are not compelling because they're all compelling. But that's probably the least to me because I think LSU is probably going to roll them.
See, I'm going to go Ole Miss, Arkansas as my least compelling.
I like that one because Sam Pittman's got a quarterback now for the first time in a long time. It's not.
But do you believe in him? Do you believe in him?
If there's 7 games here, I'd probably put LSU, Florida as my 7, Arkansas, Ole Miss my 6. I would really, I'd probably put them as a 6. I'd put Notre Dame A&M as 5.
Okay.
Probably Clemson, Georgia as 4, to be honest, because I'm just not excited about following this team at all right now. 3 is Notre Dame A&M. 2, South Carolina, Vandy, and I think the most compelling is Georgia, Tennessee. It's a top 15 versus top 15 matchup. It's number 6 versus number 15. And the game's being played at Georgia, correct?
It's being played. I think it's at Tennessee. Hold on. I'm sorry. I told you. I told you. I think it's at Tennessee. Let me make sure. Yes, it's at Tennessee.
Oh, that's going to be
It's in Knoxville.
That's going to be good.
I've got my list for you in just a second. Let me go to the phone lines first.
Yeah.
My least intriguing, though, is Ole Miss, Arkansas. My number 1 is LSU, Florida.
Wow. See, we value very different things.
By the way, caller, we lost you. If you want to call back and get in, I was about to come to you. So call back if you want to get in. So here's where I am. Most intriguing. I'm going Ole Miss, Arkansas at 7.
Mm-hmm.
At 6, I'm going Clemson, Georgia Tech. I'm sorry. I know I'm a host in the upstate of South Carolina, and I should tell you that this game's going to be spectacular. I'm just not uberly intrigued by this game there. You had midway?
I had him at 4. I mean, look, Georgia Tech and Haynes King with Haynes King is a good football team. But they're playing, but I mean, they're not going to be sexy against anybody. Yep. And Clemson has looked awful offensively through 2 games. Maybe it's compelling because is this their get right game? Maybe they woke them up somehow, but it's not the top of my list. It's not even, it's kind of in the middle. I think the Clemson Georgia Tech game is the one that you kind of peek over to every now and again just to see what the score is.
Yeah, I don't hate that. It's just, I just don't know that it's going to be riveting football, you know? Like, is it going to be riveting?
Maybe in the fourth quarter if Clemson is down 7 points with, 4 minutes to go in the ball.
So here's my list. I've got it. I just finalized it. 7, least interest, Ole Miss, Arkansas. 6, Clemson, Georgia Tech. 5, Miami, USF. 4, Notre Dame, A&M. 3, Georgia, Tennessee. 2, South Carolina, Vandy. As I told you, I'm most interested in LSU, Florida. I think that could be a lot of fun on Saturday. Let's see what Kev has to say back on the phone lines at 844-326-3663. What's up, Kev?
Kev, you got us?
Yes, sir.
What's up, Kev?
It's actually Jeff.
Oh, Jeff. Sorry about that.
Jeff, that's my apologies. I can't hear good, evidently.
Yeah, go ahead, Jeff.
Sorry about that. That's my apologies. I can't hear good, evidently.
What do you have to say, Jeff?
No, it's Gamecock Tim. But
Gamecock Tim.
Yes, sir. My least on that list is actually the Notre Dame. I would say. Then I'm going with the Arkansas, I think, and then moving up LSU,
Mm.
and then we got
What's your name?
Miami.
Yeah, Miami's playing USF.
Yeah. Then I got to Tennessee,
Okay.
but that one because it's the most interesting to me. But of course, gotta love my Gamecocks.
Sure.
And then that Clemson Georgia Tech, just because I think Georgia Tech is going to give them all they can handle.
Okay.
But I would have to still go with Clemson in that game though. But that's my interest on that one. So
I like it. So your top one was your top one Clemson Georgia Tech, you said?
yes, sir.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
I like it. Gamecock Tim, appreciate you calling the show, man.
Thanks, Tim.
Yes, sir.
Clemson, Georgia. Think about that. Clemson, Georgia Tech was a Gamecock fan's number one most intriguing game this weekend. How about it?
So you're telling me that South Carolina fans think about Clemson more than they think about themselves. Is that true, Tom, in Somerville?
They probably want them to lose. What's up, Tom?
Hey, guys. I don't know what the word riveting means, but I will say it sounds like something that says Cade Klubnik. So if that means watching Cade Klubnik,
no, Tom. I hate to break this to you. I unfortunately, riveting and Cade Klubnik hadn't been used in the same sentence this year, right, Diesel?
Not once.
Oh,
The last time Cade Klubnik was riveting was right before kickoff of the LSU game.
And against Texas at times, he was riveting.
Oh, okay. So that means good, basically.
Yeah, riveting is really interesting.
Okay. Well, it is not the most riveting game of the weekend by any means. But y'all mentioned that Georgia Tennessee game. I got a stat for y'all, and it is wild. It's actually a two-parter here.
Do we need a drum roll?
Let's get a drum
All right.
roll. Let's get a drum roll. The last Tennessee football coach to beat Kirby Smart was Butch Jones at Tennessee. He ain't walking that sideline this weekend. And Kirby Smart in SEC openers is 9-0 at Georgia with a combined average victory of 20.5 points per game in the SEC opener. And on top of that, since the Hail Mary loss to Tennessee in 2016, Kirby Smart has beaten Tennessee every time by more than 14 points. This game Saturday is not going to be close. Kirby Smart made sure his guys played like crap last week so he would wake them up. The same thing Dabo, Troy, the Bulldogs, and as much as it hates me to say it, the Clemson Tigers are going to cover this weekend, and they're going to look pretty good in doing it. I'm going to go ahead and say it.
Wow.
The other team in this state, I was kind of concerned yesterday, but I'm starting to feel a little bit better about the Gamecocks. I'm not as concerned because Vanderbilt has not beaten us in Columbia since 2007. I think a late turnover is going to be the difference, and the Gamecocks are going to sneak one out, guys.
I like it. Thanks, Tom. Good stuff there. Good stuff from
when I sneak one out, my wife makes me open the window.
Oh, man. Also, JT and Greer getting in on the Hub City Spartanburgers text line talking about Tennessee's defensive backs being out. That's true. Hurricane Jeff chiming in. Nasty talking about LSU, Florida not doing it for them. Really good interaction there, Tolos.
When we come back, Cole, let's do this. Let's go behind enemy lines. Talk to Andy Demetra, play-by-play voice for Georgia Tech football. He's coming up next. Well, Clemson has not looked great in its first two outings this season, though they do sit at 2-0, and they're on the road this weekend in their first true road test of the season, facing the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets for just about 2 hours down the road. And to talk about it, go behind enemy lines, we bring on Andy Demetra, the play-by-play voice of Georgia Tech athletics and Georgia Tech football. Andy, welcome back to the show. It's been a little while since we've had you on. It's got to feel like Georgia Tech and Haynes King are licking their lips this weekend, because this Clemson team, with all its preseason hype, looks very gettable.
Yeah, it's a big line in the sand game, frankly, for both programs. I think Georgia Tech wants to legitimize a lot of the hype and attention they had received this preseason. We know they haven't beaten Clemson in their last 9 outings, and Clemson, even though they've stumbled a bit these first 2 games, and even though Florida State and Miami are off to fantastic starts themselves, Clemson is still the lodestone of the ACC, and there is something to be said about going in with all that expectation, all that attention, and being able to deliver a win in front of your home fans. So it's going to be a pretty charged atmosphere at Bobby Dodd Stadium, a Hyundai Field, and it'll be a good early measuring stick for both coaches to see how their teams respond in that situation.
Andy, in Diesel's question there, you answer with the results of what Clemson's done in the first 2 games. That's where I want to go with my first question to you. By the way, always appreciate you hopping on with us. Have those first 2 results, obviously a win on Saturday, Clemson will take it, but the way in which Clemson has played in the first 2, has that surprised you at all?
It has, only because we all know about the level of production that Clemson returned. And Cade Klubnik is a top 2 quarterback in the ACC, and rightfully so. You could make the argument he is the top returning quarterback in the ACC. So a little uncharacteristic to see some of his missed throws and some of his errant scrambling in the pocket. Not having Antonio Williams certainly will leach some of the explosiveness out of that Clemson offense. And I get that they're playing a converted wide receiver at running back, and you have to presume Adam Randall will get more comfortable as the season goes on, and who he's been in weeks 1 and 2 may not resemble the Adam Randall that Clemson will get in weeks 8, 9, 10, and so on. So it is a little surprising, but also Dabo has the track record of his teams getting better as the season goes on, and we know they have so many dudes on defense. They don't need to be a prolific, high-scoring offense to be able to get a W. As we've seen so many times throughout Dabo's tenure. And whenever you have guys like Brown and Woodaz and Woods and Parker, and the list goes on, and Terrell, those are some of the best defensive players you'll get in the ACC. So it's still going to be a big challenge for Georgia Tech, and they are under no delusions otherwise come Saturday.
Andy, Georgia Tech has one of the most interesting stadiums in college football. And by interesting, I say you can put on a hard hat and a lamp on your forehead and go spelunking a little bit underneath the stands. I wonder, to our fans, our audience who doesn't know, there is some section of the preserved original concrete structures from the early 1910s underneath the main supports of what's now there. Do you ever get a chance to go spelunking under there? I know that's used for storage, so it's not as dangerous as it sounds, but you ever wander down there?
Oh, I sure have. Yeah, you do feel like a Tomb Raider minus the torches. And that's what makes Bobby Dodd Stadium at Hyundai Field so cool. It's the oldest on-campus Division I football stadium in the U.S. It opened in 1913, and the original concrete grandstands, when the Grant Field, as it was called at the time, only seated 6,000, are still there. You can actually see these seat numbers on those concrete grandstands. And when they built a new West Side stand, they determined, because of course Georgia Tech's an engineering school, that it would be more cost-effective and more structurally sound for them to build the stands over the concrete grandstand rather than just completely remove those concrete grandstands themselves. So though it's not accessible to the public or to ticket holders, it does make it really cool, and it's a great blend of the old historic and the modern, because you look out over the east stands and you see that gleaming skyline of Atlanta. And so it's a really cool, charming, unique, historic venue in which to watch a game. And they're expecting as close to a sellout, if not a full sellout, of 51,000 plus on Saturday. So it'll be a great atmosphere inside that stadium on top of all of its historic charms underneath, like you said.
Play-by-play voice of the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, Andy Demetra, joining us right here on the Fan Upstate. You see Georgia Tech, Andy, week in and week out. This morning, Dabo Swinney was asked about eye discipline playing Georgia Tech. Swinney said, eye discipline's critical. It's always critical regardless of style of play, but these guys pretty much every snap, there's a shift, there's a motion, there's some type of jet, and by nature of their scheme, you got quarterback power, quarterback counters, right? You have the RPOs built into it. They just control them based on the reaction of the defense, says Dabo Swinney. How much of the Clemson defensive unit's focus in your mind will be on the eye candy, the eye discipline, if you will, when you talk about Saturday's matchup?
Yeah, I think that's a priority anytime a team faces Georgia Tech, and Buster Faulkner has really solidified himself as a creative play caller and tactician of his style of offense. And Dabo's right. You will not see many other teams in America use more pre-snap shifts and motions than Georgia Tech will. They'll use a lot of 12 personnel and roll out 2 tight ends. There is some outside zone. There is some QB run game. There's some screens, and they've got some guys who can take the top off of a defense as well. And it's all designed to keep a defense off balance and sort of keep them flat-footed up front. Colorado had a pretty physically menacing defensive line when Tech played them in the season opener, but they could not just get any push. They only had 3 tackles for loss, and Georgia Tech gained 320 rushing yards against what was figured to be a very stout Colorado defensive front. So, yeah, it is an offense that can play some tricks on you. Eye discipline and reading your keys is paramount whenever you're facing Georgia Tech, and that's a testament to Buster Faulkner and what he's been able to do and how his playbook has evolved and how Georgia Tech has been able to recruit year over year the personnel that really fits the scheme.
Buster, how bullish do you? Andy, how bullish do you expect?
That's not a bad comparison.
How bullish do you expect Buster to be when it comes to trying to establish the run against this Clemson defense that it's been stellar against the run in its 2 games? Now it's the passing defense that has not been great for Clemson. Do you expect them to hammer, trying to get something going on the ground, or if it's not working, are they going to really air this thing out?
I think Georgia Tech's identity is through the run. It was last year, and it was the year before that. So I don't think they're going to deviate much from that. And you've got a guy in Jamal Haynes who is preseason first-team All-ACC. He's a dynamic, diminutive back who really brings his pads. He's not a guy that goes out easily on first contact. Georgia Tech now has a complement to him in Malachi Hosley, who was Ivy League Player of the Year last season at Penn. He had a 100-yard rushing game versus Gardner-Webb last week, so they feel they can keep their backs fresh and roll them in. And then you also have to account for the QB run game. Aaron Filo didn't call his own number too much last week, but should we see him again on Saturday, he's not shy about calling his own number, and Haynes King is certainly not afraid about throwing his body around, as everybody saw in his performance rushing the football versus Colorado. So, Georgia Tech, I think their identity is built through the run game, but there are a lot of different ways that they can attack through the run that may not make it as straightforward a stop as defenses would like. But, again, whether it's been with Tom Allen or in previous iterations, Clemson has always been really stingy stopping the run, and that'll be a big challenge on Georgia Tech's end as well, is can they gain some rhythm and sustained productive yardage and stay on schedule when they do put the ball on the ground.
Andy, you mentioned Georgia Tech wanting to stick to who they are, but a question for you, just out of curiosity here. How much in your mind do you think Georgia Tech's game plan has changed against this Clemson team, now having seen what they've seen on film in the first 2 games where Clemson hasn't been the best, based on what maybe they would have expected and game planned for if these 2 teams were to have played in week 1?
That's a good question, and that's why you have a lot of guys making 6-figure salaries up in those coaches' offices, because I'm sure that's what they're studying right now as we speak. But at the same time, you have to stay true to who you are. And, it's not that Georgia Tech is a passing-averse team. Haynes King last year was 3rd in the nation in completion percentage, and he broke Riley Skinner's ACC record for single-season completion percentage. So, they're not a bashful passing team if the situation calls for it. And they really feel good about how they've retooled their wide receivers room. Yes, they lost Eric Singleton Jr. he was one of the most sought-after receivers in the transfer portal. He's now at Auburn. But they got Eric Rivers, so they swap out one Eric for another. And he was a third-team AP All-American at FIU last year and was among the nation's leaders in receptions and receiving touchdowns. You pair him with a guy like Malik Rutherford, who's fifth in school history or sixth in career receptions, and some other guys who can create mismatches with their body types and profiles. So Georgia Tech is still very confident if they do have to air it out. And I think they can just use that run to set up the pass, and it's been very productive for them. So, accuracy, whether it's King or Filo, has not been an issue for them. And while you do have to stay faithful to your identity as an offense, Georgia Tech is at its best when it is balanced between the run and the pass. And, I'm sure they might have been given some ideas based on maybe some less than stellar performances on film from that Clemson pass defense. That being said, we all know Clemson has a lot of talent in that back four, and they're going to make life tough because they always seem to do that against Georgia Tech.
Andy, you mentioned freshman Aaron Filo there, who had just a phenomenal debut last week against Gardner-Webb, 21 completions, 373 yards. And in the modern landscape of college football, players are coming and going all the time. And it's probably going to be hard to hang on to a guy who has that stellar of a debut. What's Brent Key's pitch going to be like to keep a guy like that, Aaron Filo, on campus? Because I think all these coaches now are figuring out that if you can get him in young, coach him up for 3 to 4 years, hang on to him for a while, you're probably going to be better off than going all transfers.
Well, first off, I think Aaron Filo made ACC history this week when he became the first player in the conference to win ACC Rookie of the Week in 2 separate seasons. Because he played 4 games last year, including their come-from-behind win versus North Carolina State. He split snaps with Haynes King in that win over number 4 Miami when the Hurricanes rolled into Atlanta 9-0, but he was able to preserve his red shirt. And I'm sure it's the era in which we live that the vultures were circling around Aaron Filo, but it speaks to the culture that Brent has imprinted here at Georgia Tech and the belief that Aaron Filo has in Brent and in Buster Faulkner's system, that he didn't seek a different environment. He was more than willing to be there for another year, knowing that he likely wasn't going to supplant Haynes King, and he might have to wait until 2026 for him to run the show. But as you saw versus Gardner-Webb and you saw in spurts last year, he has a lot of arm talent, and he's a really savvy quarterback. I mean, he broke Trevor Lawrence's Georgia high school career passing yards record. So, he's always been a shrewd, accurate signal caller who I think has continued to grow in this system and apprenticing under Haynes King. And Georgia Tech feels very confident that if they need to call upon him for whatever the situation dictates this Saturday or any other game this season, they have the utmost confidence in Aaron Filo. Brent Key was steadfast this offseason in saying he believes he has the best quarterback room in the country. And between Haynes King and Aaron Filo, you have 2 really good guys that can come in and inspire a lot of confidence in their offensive teammates.
Andy, have a fantastic call on Saturday. As always, we appreciate your time, man.
Appreciate that, and shout out to my in-laws up there in Greer. Hi, Dale and Ellen. I know you're listening.
Andy, before we let you go, I do have to let you know, you've heard of that concept of the 6 degrees from Kevin Bacon, right? Where you're never more than 6 degrees away from somebody. Well, you and I
100%.
are 1 degree separated, even though you and I have never met. I went to high school with and graduated high school with your executive associate athletic director for fundraising. That's a mouthful. Robbie Poteet. He and I went to high school together.
I will make sure to mention that to Robbie as he shakes down my pockets tomorrow morning.
That's right. Great
Thanks,
stuff as always. Andy Demetra, the play-by-play voice of Georgia Tech. High School Player of the Week next, right here on the Fan Upstate. It's time to talk to the Fan Upstate Player of the Week for Week 2. He's Mountain View Prep's Mac Anderson-Wallington. A huge night for Mountain View Prep on Friday against St. Joseph. So big of a night that he had to alter the way that I construct the graphic, Diesel, on social media, on Twitter, on Facebook, and YouTube because of all of these stats that he compiled. What did Mac do on Friday? 13 of 17, 269 yards through the air, 3 passing touchdowns, 11 rushes for 153 yards, 4 rushing touchdowns on top of that, and 7 total touchdowns to cap off the night. Mac, we appreciate you coming on with us. You are the Fan Upstate Player of the Week. Would you rank this one at the very tippy top in terms of your all-time performances as long as you've been playing football?
Yes, sir, I do.
What went into it for you to allow it to be such a successful performance on Friday?
We had a great week of preparation and practice. Like, everybody was just dialed in. My defense helped me. It was a lot.
Matt, can you talk about the game plan that your coach put together there for you that helped create such a huge night? Was it just a perfect game plan against an opponent like that, or were you just feeling it so much that you were creating on your own?
It was something like that. Most of my O-line and my wide receivers, they just helped so much.
Mac, I want to talk to you about the passing attack through the air, and then we'll get to what you did on the ground after that. But 13 of 17, 269 yards, and 3 touchdowns. What kind of quarterback, when you talk about just the way you throw the football, we'll get to the running game in a few minutes, but when you talk about throwing the football, what kind of quarterback would you say you are? If somebody were to ask you to describe yourself and your game, how would you describe your gameplay to somebody else?
I would describe it as definitely a throw-first guy. I always try to find my wide receivers. So, like, if they open, they going to get it.
Mac, talk about those wide receivers and the relationship that you've got with them and how well you guys work together.
Oh, those are like my brothers. Like, we viewed each other every day outside of practice. We might it could just be playing pickup or watching the game. We just always with each other. So
kind of piggybacking off of that, Mac, when you're with those guys, what are you doing outside of football? I mean, you said pick up basketball there. What kind of activities are y'all doing outside of football?
Just bonding. We could be playing the video games, just going to big air. Like, it could just be anything small.
Mac, what's your video game of choice?
Oh, NCAA.
Okay. What team do you always play as on NCAA?
South Carolina.
And why is that?
Lenore Sellers.
All right, okay.
So you bring that up, Mac, as we're talking to the Fan Upstate Player of the Week, Mac Anderson-Wallington of Mountain View Prep, when Diesel's asking you about playing NCAA there. Lenore Sellers, obviously a guy who can do it through the air, but also do it through with his legs as well. What kind of quarterback do you think he is in terms of how you try to model your game after him? I'm sure he's a guy you look up to, right?
Yes, sir.
Describe that game, though. Describe it for me. What is it about his game that you really feel like separates him?
The way that he can use his legs. When he uses his legs, like, it just opened up the passing game so much.
Yeah. Mac, talk about how you watch college football on Saturdays. I'm sure you watch on Saturdays. I'm sure you watch on Sundays as well. You know, the way you watch the game is probably completely different than the way that Cole, myself, and an average lay fan watches the game. So how do you like to break down what you're seeing in college football games?
Most of the time, like, certain people, they try to watch the offense. I try to watch the defense because if the best can do it, then I know high school is going to try.
I like it. I like it a lot. When you we talked about what you do through the air, Mac, but when you rush or scramble out of the pocket, the other night you had, let me pull this back up, 4 rushing touchdowns, 11 rushes for 153 yards. Walk us through as a quarterback what it's like with your legs in the ground game in terms of designed runs, if you prefer those, if you guys do a lot of those, or do you just try to have that feel in the pocket to know when to break out and take off?
I try to stay in the pocket as long as I can, but, like, once I run, I try to score.
So, Mac, now that you've probably turned the page and started working on Crescent game prep, what do you see that they may do that might serve as some challenges? Obviously, you've performed really well in your first 3 games so far, but what does Crescent do?
Oh, I seen their D-line and they secondary. Like, it's just amazing. Like, we just got to work around them guys.
Yeah. Mac, what do you think? What would you say y'all's overall team goals are for the season? Obviously, Mountain View Prep a season ago, you know what kind of success they had. Trying to build off of that, what's your team goals? What have you talked to the team about as well, being a leader on that football team?
Oh, it's simple. State championship.
Pretty simple, huh?
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Anything short of that, a failure in your mind?
Oh, no.
Mac, you know, you hear about some of the best teams always. It's player-led teams. I'm sure you're a leader on this team, being the junior quarterback there at MVP. What are those little things that maybe some of your offensive linemen do or wide receivers do that get on your nerves that you've got to really assert yourself as the leader when you see these things happening?
We live by this one motto: is good teams get coached, great teams coach themselves.
I like that. I like that a lot. All right, Mac, let's go back to the NCAA for a second. I'm going to put you to the test. If you are playing and you've got a couple scenarios where it's a tight game, you and one of your teammates, right? You ready for this?
Yes, sir.
All right, it's you're playing obviously to win the game. It's a close game late in the fourth quarter. It's 4th and 3. What are you going to call offensively?
QB power.
Why?
Lenore.
All right, what if it's 4th and 9? What are you calling?
Oh, you know, got this kid over there, Nick Harbor, 99 feet, go ball.
One more for you. 3rd down, and let's say 3rd down late in the game. Lenora Sellers is injured. 3rd and 6. 3rd and 6. Lenora's just went down the play before. What are you calling now with whoever the backup might be?
I'm probably going to run a screen.
Okay. Seems like you're high on Lenoris, rightfully so. So I'm with you there. Not a bad play call there, but I like it. You think you could beat me?
Oh, yeah.
Pretty confident there, right?
Mac, you know, obviously we can tell by the answers that you've given so far that you very much have a South Carolina lean. You love the Gamecocks. I'm a childhood fan, I assume?
Not really, but like it's going to the games.
Okay.
Like, root for it.
Well, I've heard, and since we're talking about NCAA, I've heard that a lot of student athletes that are getting attention from various schools, and you keep playing the way that you are, those offers are going to keep on rolling in. But I've heard that high school juniors and seniors, they're playing NCAA to get a sense of the atmospheres and the places that they may be looking at to go play at in real life. Would you say that that's true, or that's just made up?
No, that's very true.
I like it.
All right. What other stadiums and environments that you played in on that game sort of impressed you and made you say, I'm interested in them in real life?
Tennessee.
Wow. Good environment. So you obviously, as Diesel said, leaning towards South Carolina there. Environment-wise, one more for you there before we talk about what's after high school. South Carolina's environment versus Clemson's environment, because we've had a lot of conversations on this show about the two. Which one in your mind is better?
You see a lot of orange, but I think it's Carolina.
Okay. Mac, you know, obviously, like we said, you had 3 really good games in a row. Hopefully you can keep up that level of consistency, but how do you get into or describe your rhythm on a weekly basis to make sure that whether you're playing Southside or St. Joseph's or Crescent or Cabarrus, that you are preparing in the same way every single week?
I'm doing the same thing, but it's mostly like my faith in Christ.
Okay, good answer.
Gotcha. Last one for you, Mac. Last one for you. And if you could have it your way, perfect dream scenario here. What are your plans after college? What would you want to do if you could draw it up just like you wanted to?
Going to the NFL.
What team?
What team? Baltimore.
Oh my gosh, you like those athletic quarterbacks, don't you? The run first quarterbacks. You're a fan of those? No, I was hoping you'd say Cowboys. No star on your helmet.
Oh, nah.
Tolos, it's only a couple of times a week that the media gets direct access to Dabo Swinney. It's usually right after football games on Saturdays. And then on Tuesdays with Dabo's press conference. Shane Beamer has his press conference on Wednesdays. And now we want to be able to bring that audio directly to you the day after the day of their press conference so that you can hear directly from the horse's mouth what it is Shane Beamer and Dabo Swinney each have to say about their teams. A little wrap up on the week before and leading into the next game. So starting today and now every Tuesday, we'll have audio from Dabo's presser, and we'll do the same thing at 6 o'clock on Wednesdays. Dabo certainly had a lot to say in his press conference today.
Shocker. Shocker. Dabo spoke a lot. You're kidding me. It usually runs close to an hour. I think today's was actually 48, 50 minutes or so. I was tuned in online for the entirety of it. And, I actually thought today's presser was really insightful from Dabo. Every now and then, though, when he has this extended amount of time, Diesel, you get little segments where Dabo runs down a rabbit trail and maybe goes X's and O's, maybe goes rant. Today it was X's and O's. And a few times during today's media session, he went X's and O's and he just went down this deep, dark hole for 2 to 3 minutes. But a lot was said, and I'll tell you this. If you're a Clemson fan out there and you want to see quote by quote, go to thefanupstate.com. On the front page, you'll see an article with almost every quote from Dabo Swinney today, Diesel. We're going to get into that because there's some really interesting quotes that kind of make you say, whoa, he said that? Really?
Okay.
About Kate Klubnik? He said that about this team? We'll get into it, but here's the opening statement from Dabo today talking about Georgia Tech.
My first road game this week. Got a huge challenge in Georgia Tech. This is a big game for both teams. Obviously, we're getting into conference play and our first road test. So excited about the opportunity. Brent's done an amazing job down there. This is a tough, physical, well-coached football team. And they're battle tested, especially on offense with that quarterback. I mean, this guy's a warrior. I have a ton of respect for him as a player. They got really good skill around him. They're tough and physical up front. They all really understand their scheme, and they take a lot of pride in the execution of it. So put a lot of strain on you defensively. I mean, it's there's multiple options on every snap, and but they're going to put it in their best players' hands. So they got between their quarterback and 0 and 1. Those guys really strain you. They're going to touch the ball early, often, in a lot of different ways, whether it's from the backfield, jet sweeps, and then they've done a nice job with some guys on the perimeter that they brought in there that have the ability to make some big plays too. So some of those guys didn't play a lot last week with the nature of their game. They blocked a couple of kicks, so they do a good job. Creating some opportunity there. We'll have to do a really great job with our protection. And then defensively, they're not giving up a ton of big plays. I mean, they do a nice job of, just executing their defense, being where they're supposed to be. They're active up front. They're thick and stout up front. Again, the game kind of got away last week, but a good opener versus Colorado to kind of get a feel for their personnel over there. So a big challenge for us. Again, this is also a rivalry game. Clemson Georgia Tech's one of the older ones. They've been going on for a long time. Always fun to be a part of this game. Been a lot of great ones over the years, and we're thankful for this opportunity. But look forward to going down there and having a great competition.
So that was the opening statement from Dabo Swinney talking about Georgia Tech, and then obviously he goes into questions. Before we go into specific quotes, Diesel, your reaction, love, hate, any issue, any thoughts on Dabo's opening statement there?
I mean, can we just skip past they're tough, they're physical, they're well coached? I mean, why
That's
do they
the same jargon every week almost,
every coach
right?
says that about every single team they play. You could be playing Gardner Webb, after they just got blown out by Georgia Tech. Oh, they're tough, they're physical, they're well coached, they're disciplined, they do the right things. Hey, come on, let's just skip that part of it. I mean,
Yeah.
Anybody with any kind of a media training would look at that and say, hey, pick it up, Dabo. Let's skip that part. You don't need to say those things anymore.
He does. Every coach does. I'm with you. It's kind of the boring part, right?
I mean, he's absolutely right there about Haynes King. He's been around forever. The guy is older than Tom Brady. Most people don't realize that. He's been at Texas A&M and he's been in that Georgia Tech program for years. He's a really good football player that can pick you apart.
He is. He's really good. And, man, I'm telling you, these quotes that are on the fanupstate.com on the front page, Tolos, if you're a Clemson fan, check them out. They're interesting. Let's go through them, Diesel, and react here. So we'll get to Georgia Tech. We'll get to Brent Key. Dabo spoke highly of him. But let's talk about this first quote that I want to bring to the air. Dabo Swinney was asked about the fans after the delay on Saturday. Dabo Swinney responded with, it was sparse, but those fans that were there were awesome. They really made a difference down the stretch. Diesel, did you by chance see how sparse it was after the delay?
Yeah, it was real sparse.
It was real sparse.
For a stadium that most stadiums don't allow this, but for a venue that allows you to leave and then come back, they could have come back.
And they didn't.
They did not.
Now, you know what Dabo said about that today? He asked the question. He said, by the way, were they selling alcohol out there? Is that why, joking that maybe they were boozed up in the parking lot and then maybe it was the bad play. Maybe that had but Dabo Swinney, he used the word sparse there. Dabo Swinney Diesel also said, and I quote, we better be on point this Saturday. This will be a battle. And again, we talked about the typical jargon that Dabo usually throws out. But this time, like, even though he might say this every week, I'm with him on this one. If Clemson's not on point, if they're not crisp, if they don't come out faster, I think they could be in trouble. Georgia Tech's a type of team, Diesel, that wants to control the pace of play.
Yeah.
And I think if Clemson, just like you saw Saturday, they've got enough athletes to where I believe they'll still be in the game late. But if they don't come out sharp, to Dabo's point here, it's going to be a 4-quarter battle. And I don't know that you want Haynes King, who is 74, to your point, with the ball at the end of the game, right?
Yeah, I mean, Georgia Tech controlled the time of possession against Colorado.
Shocker.
32.5 minutes to 27.5 minutes. I'm trying to find the numbers here for the Gardner Webb game.
Oh, boy.
Takes a couple seconds and that's not really a great test, right?
Yeah.
But they also controlled the time of possession in that game, 37 minutes to 20. Take that back. They were scoring so fast they didn't get a chance to control the time of possession.
That's what I was going
to
guess.
But it ultimately didn't matter. With a time of possession, a play clock type of team like that, it's hard. If Clemson gets down by, 14 points, 17 points, you start to get in that territory where you don't have enough time to score quickly and to get yourself back into a ball game. If you get late in the third quarter and your possessions get limited and you can't get the ball back from Georgia Tech, because we've seen Clemson struggle to stop, third downs, this could be a tough game for them.
A few more for you. Dabo Swinney says today, and I quote, our execution is not where it needs to be. It's just not. So poor execution through the first 2 games from Dabo Swinney. He also says, if we continue to play like this, we don't win many games. We've got to get into a rhythm on offense. We've got to get better as coaches. Diesel, I think this quote's telling. I really do. I think you take a lot from this quote. You overreact to this quote. If we continue to play like this, we don't win many games. Meaning Dabo's admitting that what he's seen through 2 games hasn't been good, right?
Yeah.
Hadn't been great. And then he goes on to say, we've got to get into a rhythm on offense. The very next line is, we've got to be better as coaches. That tells me this offense isn't being coached up to full potential, right? I mean, Garrett Riley, it's time to step up.
I mean, look at Garrett's last year at TCU. That offense was incredible. So are you trying to tell me that TCU just flat out had better athletes than Clemson had? Or is Garrett Riley just not getting through to the athletes he's got here at Clemson?
Was Garrett Riley calling the plays in TCU?
Ooh. What if he wasn't? Oh, my God. That might be the best con job ever.
Right.
I mean, what was it? Was it Max Duggan who was his quarterback there his last year at TCU? They were amazing. Where has that offense been? You have to. I know it's a Big 12 offense, and they've got Power 5 at the time, Power 5 level players. But I mean, Clemson's loaded with 4 and 5 stars all over the place. You have more talent than TCU did. Why can they not put it together?
So
look that way.
Diesel, here's another interesting one you'll like. And I think if you're a Clemson fan, you want to pay attention to this one as well. So during the press conference today, there were a lot of mentions about preseason camp, right? Going back to camp. The question was, is this the most surprised you've been that over the years that camp performance hasn't translated to games? Dabo's answer was, no, dealt with it before. I feel like I'm living in 2016 all over again, honestly. In fact, I went back and looked at my notes after the Troy game, and it was like I could have walked into the team meeting with the same comments, different reasons, but same comments. I love the question there because, Diesel, everything Dabo has told us points to the fact that this Clemson team you're seeing today is a different team than he and the coaches saw in the preseason camp. That's bad. That's glaring. Something you're not translating that to the field. Why? 2 games, small sample size. Yeah. But at some point, you got to start translating over.
Yeah, I mean, have they just it really is baffling how you can heap so much praise on a team in camp. You think it's Dabo kind of getting high on his own supply, so to speak?
Maybe.
Feeling really good about his team, saying these guys are amazing. They're all so good. There's 5 stars everywhere. We're elite. We're going to be so good this year. I mean, what was the conversation ahead of the LSU game? It's not about facing LSU. It's about playing Clemson. It's about ourselves. Well, man, you got to start looking outside and being like, I don't know if we have the horses or the discipline or the mindset to beat elite teams like that.
Well, obviously, there's a lapse somewhere on the evaluation, right? Of maybe the preseason conversation was too high of what you saw in camp. Maybe this is what you play or what you get when you play real teams that aren't you, right? Here's an interesting one, Diesel. The question that Dabo today was, has Cade been as much of a factor with his legs as you envisioned? Answer from Dabo, no, he hasn't. He's been too much of a factor with his legs, meaning he scrambles when he doesn't need to scramble. That's what he did early in his career, says Dabo. He runs out of the pocket for no reason, and he didn't do that at all in camp. So another reference to camp, Diesel. Asked about if Cade has surprised Dabo as being the legs, being a factor in the games, right? Dabo says, I think they've been too much of a factor, meaning he hadn't done the right things at the right time.
Sounds like he's saying Cade's playing scared.
That's just like, it's a huge problem. I mean, maybe it's playing scared. Maybe it's, again, I'll read the quote. No, he hasn't. He's been too much of a factor with his legs. He scrambles when he doesn't need to scramble. That's what he did early in his career. He runs out of the pocket for no reason, and he didn't do that at all in camp. So, Diesel, maybe he's playing scared. Maybe he's trying to do too much. Maybe he just doesn't trust what he sees. Maybe he can't read defenses like we thought he could. Maybe the level of competition is something that Cade's just not good at adjusting with. Maybe there's 100 reasons out there, but something has to be true, right? Why would a quarterback, think about that, why would a quarterback scramble out of the pocket early? You said scared. Doesn't trust the offensive line. So doesn't trust the offensive line, doesn't like what he sees, doesn't see separation from receivers, right? Early separation. Man, there's some of these quotes in here that are glaring for me that maybe alarming is the better word instead of glaring.
Yeah, and I don't see it as an overconfidence issue. I see it as a fear issue. It's not like, well, let me rephrase this. Cade is really good with his legs when he needs to be, right? We've seen him break off big runs. He's quick. He's elusive enough to be really good with his legs. It's not as if he's trusting his legs and putting it on his legs so much more because he doesn't trust his wide receivers to get open. I don't know. He doesn't, he's afraid.
It's alarming. Also, Dabo Swinney said, and I quote, "It's not about as much as adjustments as it is about executing what we have coached them to do. Getting 11 guys to do their job is really what this comes down to. The biggest thing Saturday was calming everyone down. It was a weird deal. It felt like we were down 35-0. So again, he went back to execution. He brought that up several times today, Diesel. He brought it up with Cade. He even brought it up today with Sammy Brown, talking about a play in that Troy game where Sammy just wasn't doing his job. And going back to that quote, a big problem, the execution. Dabo Swinney was asked about his team's identity thus far. Swinney said, right now, it's not very good. It's early, though, but we will see. We have a long way to go. We talked about the eye discipline. We talked about that with Andy Demetra. We talked about the rivalry game aspect. You just heard that. Let's see here. Dabo also says this is a big game for both teams. Excited about the opportunity. Brent has done an amazing job down there, and this is a tough physical football team. That quarterback is a warrior, and I have a ton of respect for him as a player. Let's see. He also credits Georgia Tech's defense and says defensively they aren't giving up a ton of big plays. They do a nice job of executing their defense and being where they are supposed to be. They are active up front, thick and stout up front. So those quotes, just a few of the many that you can find on thefanupstate.com from Dabo Swinney. Overall, though, Diesel, I wouldn't say that I hear Dabo Swinney worried about the outcome of Saturday. I just think I hear Dabo, when I hear him speak in this presser today, I think I hear the worry and frustration on his part as to why his players aren't doing what they were supposed to do and why his players aren't doing what they did just a few weeks ago in camp.
Dewey on the stream says even Dabo is sick of Cade Klubnik. Do you mean that as a this week, these 2 weeks, or ready to move on as far as ready for the Cade Klubnik era to come to an end and ready for maybe the Christopher Vezina era to get started?
For that.
Yeah, I mean, maybe Dabo sees that Cade Klubnik has a certain ceiling and he just is the player that he is, which is still a pretty good player. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But maybe Dabo knows, hey, he's not Trevor. He's not Deshaun.
Well, he better know
he's not
that.
Taj.
He better know
right?
that.
And you and I both know, Cole, though, if Dabo wanted to, if he felt more comfortable with Christopher Vezina, he'd Kelly Bryant, Cade Klubnik, get him out of there and start somebody else.
I just don't think it's come to that yet. I do believe ultimately he sees a lot of promise in Cade. But again, going back to the frustrating aspect of it, I think he sees Cade at his heights and says, oh my gosh, that kid's great. And then he sees Cade in the games and he's like, well, this isn't the same Cade.
Maybe Cade's a practice warrior.
I don't know.
Amazing in practice, fantastic in the gym, mediocre on the field.
Tolos, we had a fantastic conversation talking Gamecocks earlier today with Jack Veltri. That conversation coming your way next.